Still learning as we speak. Off-air conversations make it on air. It's only right for this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the NFL podcast sweeping the nation. It is your favorite Saturday sensation. It is the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. And as always, I'm joined by two amazing men. Myself, Iceman Jerk. I should probably take out the Iceman part at some point considering we're not talking hockey, but I'm going to forget every single time when it comes to next week's episode. So it's a moot point to bring up. Speaking of which,
I feel like I heard that before.
It's a moo point, like Joey from Friends says. It's a moo point, not a moot point.
Moot, tomato. Anyways, joining me on this voyage as always, he has returned from celebrations because a member of his family got married last week. His brother, ladies and gentlemen, the Zuck Man, Justin. How we doing? How was last week?
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and lucky me, I have a very close first cousin that I also am going to his wedding on Wednesday. So shout out to Brett. Yeah, I'm just happy I was able to make time in between weddings to come talk some more football.
I thought you were going to say in an ironic twist, somehow the bouquet bounced off of everyone's hands and you caught it.
I don't remember them doing a bouquet toss, but that doesn't necessarily mean they did not do one.
It's a very old school tradition. We didn't do one at our wedding because everyone's married for the most part, except for one person. So I didn't want them to be standing there all by themselves and have my wife try and throw it and hit the ceiling.
It would have been fun to watch my girlfriend run the other way, but
I was gonna say I feel like one pair was running for the hills if there was a bouquet toss. That's why I don't remember.
That's fair.
Yeah. Got the hell out of Dodge real quick. Speaking of which, the other gentleman joining me as always. Sadly, we are dearless this week via device circumstances.
No.
We hope shut it. Anyways, we hope that at some point Sandoval can rejoin the fray. But in the meanwhile, we have the next best thing, the man who is currently trailing the deer in our points in our season picks in our pick challenge. Rick, the Podfather, how are we doing?
I'm down by 7, but I'm not out of this yet. There's still a lot of time to go. And Jurg, it's winter now, so keep the Iceman on there because it makes the most sense now. It's freezing cold. And I do have a theory about what happened. So there was some UPS problems because remember last week I said that I sent Sandoval to Justin's brother's wedding. Well, the box hasn't returned yet, so I'm kind of thinking that there was some shenanigans and chicanery at the wedding at the local post office and UPS box. So I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. He's here in spirit to haunt us. Like the hockey mask wearing deer that he is.
Well, you say haunt us. There's two people on the show that he's haunting, and your poker face one that's strong there, Justin. I'm sure you know someone at the post office. You're not low there. You're not low at all, my guy. So while we wait to see that, hopefully our favorite fake fur friend, technically speaking, could potentially join us on this episode. We move on regardless. It is a award ceremony. Last week, Justin was at a wedding ceremony. It only makes sense that he has returned to another kind of ceremony, and he's going to another wedding here very soon. It is an award ceremony, as we are here to give our mid-season awards, even though technically speaking, we're past the midway point, but we had to because someone wasn't here last week. Anyways, we are going to be giving our mid-season awards for the main awards here in the NFL. Yes, we're talking about the Walter Payton of the Man of the Year award, obviously. No, we're talking about the MVP. We're talking about the Coach of the Year. We're talking about both Rookies of the Year. We're talking about both Players of the Year because, yes, offense and defense. And we'll be doing that later on in the episode because before that, we, of course, need to talk about that absolutely insane on several acid trips game, mainly fourth quarter, that was the Minnesota Vikings and the Buffalo Bills. That in and of itself will get its own talk because, boys, that was nuts, to say the very least. But before we get to that, we have to, per tradition, this is a very traditional podcast, ladies and gentlemen, obviously. We must start because what's the motto, boys? Fun, football, and chaos?
Yes, FFC.
Yes, let's start with fun and games. We begin with our usual master of games. Justin, give us some trivia.
All right. Well, this one comes from NFL on CBS on Twitter. Guys, can you name the only NFL player over the last 10 years with a pass touchdown, rush touchdown, receiving touchdown, and a kickoff return touchdown?
Oh. Okay. Are we talking same game? We're talking about for a season.
I think we would remember game.
Well, no, I'm saying like somebody's had to have one of each. Okay, at least for a season. Okay.
I don't know if it was all in the same season. I know it's career.
Oh, okay.
Clearly.
Over the last 10 years, though.
Well, there's one guy that pops to mind, but I don't know if he has the passing touchdown.
That would be
Cordell Patterson.
maybe that's
Could
a
be him.
possibility. I was thinking Tyreek, but I don't know if Tyreek Hill did kickoff returns.
I think he did his rookie season.
Yeah.
Did
I
his
don't know.
rookie
If
season. Does he have a passing touchdown?
I
feel like
that.
I feel like they always make Travis Kelce.
Dontari Poe has one, so probably he had one at some point for Kansas City.
What a name to take.
Yeah, right. Pulled that one out of thin air, didn't I?
Oh my God, that's even before before Alex Smith. That's Matt Castle.
Exactly.
Kansas City Chiefs thing. Holy hell.
Does Dontari Poe have the kickoff return touchdown?
Probably not.
Absolutely not. If he made it, my guess would have been Dan Connolly, because let's be real here. But yeah, I mean, so my thought is, of the guys that did pass, run, and catch in the same game, we talked about this: Christian McCaffrey and LT.
Yeah.
LaDainian Tomlinson, maybe early in his career, was a kickoff returner, possibly, but I don't know.
Didn't he only say the last 10 years?
The last 10 years, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, but he
did play in the last 10 years.
He did.
But he was old. Like he won no spring chicken.
Unless it was an onside kick return for a touchdown. We've seen a lot of those.
Very true.
I'm trying to think of who else it might be.
Ooh, well, if it's decade, again, like this would be the very beginning portion of this decade stretch, but Percy Harvin was a weapon at his peak.
He was. He absolutely was.
I believe he at least, again, I think the same thing with Cordell Patterson. Something about former Minnesota Vikings receivers. I'm sure he got a rushing. I'm sure he got a receiving. I know he's got a kickoff touchdown because I think Percy Harvin returned the kickoff in the Super Bowl at the start of the second half for the touchdown. So we already know that. It's just the passing touchdown is the only thing that gets me with him.
I mean, either Percy Harvin or Cordell Patterson are worth a shot. Maybe even Tavon Austin could be a possibility.
My God, that is true.
Yeah.
Oh, people don't understand the hype coming out of West Virginia.
Tavon Austin was everything Tyreek Hill is now, except that Tavon Austin just got hurt and couldn't realize the full potential.
Yeah.
But he would have been a game changer if he had stayed healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our first three guesses are really good here, Rick. So I'll shoot our first bullet in the chamber.
Let's do it.
Give me, for my first one, give me Percy Harvin.
I wish I had sound effects. That would be cool to like put up like a big sound effect. No, Percy Harvin was not the correct. Yeah,
I mean, like the Family Feud X.
Yeah.
You can load of sounds on your phone.
It's true. That's a lot of work, Jared.
It is a lot of work. That's for sure.
Yeah,
God. So not Percy Harvin. Well, the thing is that I'm thinking Tavon Austin because it was also the Rams, and back a decade ago, the Rams were, well, to put it mildly, they were not very good.
They were bad.
Wasn't Sam Bradford their quarterback or something like that?
For a while. Who was the quarterback between Bradford and Jared Goff? Or was there a quarterback between?
Was it Chase Daniel?
I'm sure he was there for a little bit.
I feel like Chase Daniel is the answer to any question that we don't know the answer to.
Very true.
Wasn't Nick Foles there for a little while?
He was.
Foles might have been there. You're right. I'm gonna say, while I'm looking that up, I'm gonna say Tavon Austin. There it is. There it is. Oh my God.
What?
Not Tavon.
Okay. So Nick Foles was 2015.
Yeah.
But Bradford's last full season was 2012.
Okay.
In 2013, he started 7 of the 16 games. Kellen Clemens started the other 9.
Wow.
And then in 2014, it was an even split between Sean Hill and Austin Davis.
Oh, Lord.
You know, Dontari Poe was a reach. Austin Davis has made the pod now.
Sean Hill.
Yeah, Sean Hill.
Oh my God! What are you going to tell me? Seneca Wallace suited up for a game?
No, but I'll tell you who suited up in 2011 for 3 games. AJ Feely.
Wow.
You know, if AJ Feely was like 5 years later in his career, he would be the modern day Chase Daniel because I feel like everyone wanted him as a backup.
Either him or Kyle Bowler or Trent Green would have been like the consummate backup in that regard. God, those Rams teams were awful.
Kevin Cobb really missed out on being a backup quarterback.
He really did. He was the best Houston quarterback coming out, and then Case Keenum was like, no, I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
I'll go second guess. I'll go Tyreek Hill for me. No Tyreek Hill. Didn't think so. So then we have Patterson left in the chamber.
And I can't think of anyone else, so I think that's the next best guess. Unless there's really someone that we're just not giving due credence to, Rick.
It's possible. I mean, we do that all the time, so it's very possible.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. And I'm willing to bet if Justin had a full list of like guys who missed out on one of those, like I'm willing to bet all the names we've said so far, just need one of the remaining ones.
Well, all the guys that you've said have had touchdowns, receiving and kickoff. I would assume most of them had rushing touchdowns as well. Like I know Cordell Patterson obviously has a rushing touchdown, but I don't know. I don't know which of those guys would have passing touchdowns. Did you guess Cordell Patterson, by the way?
We didn't make it official yet.
We did not make it official, no.
So before I say Cordell, because I think he is our best possible guess, there's one more name that just popped in my brain, Rick.
Isn't it Cordero? Because Cordell is Cordell Stewart, right?
My bad. Cordell Patterson.
Okay.
So there's one more name that just popped in my head. I know he has the passing. I know he has the receiving. I don't think he did kickoffs after his rookie season, and I'm not sure about the rushing.
Okay.
But Odell Beckham Jr.?
No. Odell was not a kick returner.
No? Okay.
He wasn't.
So we'll just go with our best. This is our best guess for last. And if it's not, it's not. Give me Cordarrelle. I'm calling him Corduroy.
Corduroy?
Yes, Corduroy Patterson. Cordell Patterson.
Oh, yeah.
We put it in his mind to start using a buzzer, and he gets power hungry. This guy.
Oh, great. Is that it? That you guys have the two guesses each?
Yeah,
so that's it.
You ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Braxton Berrios.
Oh my God! No.
Dang.
No.
Yes.
Where was the passing touchdown for him?
Where was the rushing touchdown?
No, that was more recent.
This year.
Yeah, that was more recent. Where's the passing touchdown?
I believe he had one last season, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my God, that's gross.
Gadget play.
That is gross. Braxton Berrios, dear Lord.
Braxton Berrios.
Oh my God in heaven, that's gross.
Well, I don't know how to feel about losing to Braxton Berrios on a trivia question. So I think the best thing for us to do, for our Eagles, Rick, is to just move on.
There's nothing else I can say.
Yeah.
Well done, Justin. I should have known there was a Jets field of that trivia question, but
it's coming.
You knew
it was coming.
Brad Smith would have been my other guess, honestly, because
the only issue with Brad Smith is that it wasn't within the last 10 years.
Well, true. Yeah. I mean, again, when you said 10 years, that eliminated Brad Smith and David Patton and a lot of other good guys that had all those talent as well. So makes sense.
Be interesting to go through a list to see which players have those stats.
I'm sure.
But I think he was the most successful out of those guys as well in terms of just overall career. So, but that's for an episode in the summer, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on.
Yeah. No.
Our master of games has more that he's created, of course, alongside trivia, the second game ever created out of the mind of Justin. Our NFL Would You Rather. So, Justin, what are you having us pick between?
All right. So, my first one is, what is the more impactful trade? Is it going to be Bradley Chubb or Christian McCaffrey?
My heart leans toward McCaffrey just because he's now in a really dynamic offense. I mean, Jerg waxes poetic about the Kyle Shanahan magic touch, the Midas touch of Kyle Shanahan. And I think it's true that Christian McCaffrey is now in a really good offensive scheme. It just so happens that it's Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback and not Trey Lance, because that might have been a little bit different. But I think Bradley Chubb is effective no matter where he goes. But Christian McCaffrey in Carolina just wasn't working. Now that he's in San Francisco with a team that, if they win this week, will be tied for first in the NFC West, I think it makes him more impactful. And the fact that they cleared out the running back room just to make him the sole guy that's there pretty much is another big key for me. I think they're all in on Christian McCaffrey being their sole running back for the future. And it's a really good match between the team and the player. So I think for me, the trade.
Such an impactful move that it stopped his internet from working.
No, It's hey, 1 week of internet, I'm good. Next week, it sucks. Did they give a lot in the trade for McCaffrey? Yes, I think, but I think it's worth it.
You can make the argument they gave up more for Chubb.
You can, absolutely. But again, I think the greater impact is going to be the fact that McCaffrey has changed that San Francisco offense a little bit greater and it's added another weapon, whereas Miami's defense is still questionable on certain aspects. I know when we talked about that trade with Chubb, I said it was a good pickup, but it wasn't the pickup that I thought that they were going to make because they needed some help in the secondary. But McCaffrey was a weapon that San Francisco needed. So I think that's the more impactful of the trades.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like still the Bradley Chubb trade will, of course, be supremely impactful, especially because Emmanuel Ogbah is going to be out for apparently most would say the rest of the season because I think he tore I think it was his bicep, if I'm not mistaken, or his tricep. It was one of the seps. But ultimately, like, the thing with the Bradley Chubb deal is that's going to be one of those things where if the Dolphins shock us and go on like a run to the AFC Championship game, we're going to hear that in each of those games that Bradley Chubb helped create, like via Pro Football Focus, like 15 extra pressures on the quarterback for some reason, like in those, like really deep diving into it. Not to undermine it or sweep it under the rug. Bradley Chubb is a very talented player, but I feel like the most eye-popping impact is going to be via the San Francisco 49ers, and it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. Like you mentioned, Rick, I've waxed poetic, not just with Kyle Shanahan, but just the Mike Shanahan, the Shanahan coaching tree as a whole in terms of what they can do with their running games. Think about on that Washington team, and I know this graphic gets reused by like CBS Sports and everybody at least once a season for like the last 3 years, but on the same coaching staff, they had Sean McVay, they had Kyle Shanahan, and they had Mike LaFleur. Say what we will about the Packers and the Rams this season. I mean, maybe more so the Packers because their running game actually still looks intact compared to the Rams. But those are all three guys who have gotten the most out of running backs. You think of Todd Gurley winning Offensive Player of the Year under McVay. You think of Aaron Jones has now become a premier running back in this league when he was just a decent draft pick coming out. A.J. Dillon's become one of the premier second back / power backs in the league when, again, just a solid pickup coming out. And you think, once again, death, taxes, and 9 carries for at least 55 yards from a Kyle Shanahan running back at some point. And now you have in Miami, Mike McDaniel, who just continues to be from that coaching tree. So the running scheming of the Shanahan family tree works. And Christian McCaffrey is probably the most dynamic running back that I think of all the coaches I just named, he's gotten to work with. But especially with Kyle Shanahan, like you said, they traded Jeff Wilson to free it up so that at the end of the day, this is the run CMC show. And I think he's going to prove it, not just this season. I know the quarterback situation is going to be a bit bleak again because Jimmy G, I think, because they reworked his deal. So I think he's going to be a free agent after this year, and they're expecting Trey Lance to come back next year. This could also be key for Trey Lance to look a lot more comfortable this season that he has Christian McCaffrey as one of his top tier weapons to work with as well, along with Debo and Kittle. So I think easily the impact is going to belong to Christian McCaffrey in it. But again, both trades were vastly important. Just one stands out way more than the other.
All right. Interesting stuff. Here's a question for you guys. Who do you believe will clinch a playoff spot first? The Kansas City Chiefs or the Philadelphia Eagles? Now, going into the week, this question was a little different.
Right.
But considering how the Vikings can now clinch in 2 weeks, assuming they win the next 2 games,
right,
I kind of took them out of there because that seems like the obvious answer to me.
Right. I would say... See, I'm trying to think of the bottom of both conferences because that's normally how it works. I think I would say the Chiefs because part of it also plays in mind the rest of their division, and every team in the NFC East is looking like they could have a strong finish to the year, even as we know Rick's NFC East champions from preseason. Whereas in the AFC West, look, I sadly picked them with you. Like I'm suffering alongside. But whereas in the AFC West, I think essentially like if the Chiefs end up beating the Chargers this weekend, like they get a massive step closer to clinching that playoff spot and the division as a whole because the Raiders and Broncos have been, how can I be nice here? Bad this season. Yeah. And the Chargers have underperformed this season for a myriad of reasons. You lose your franchise left tackle. Both of your wide receivers have taken turns either A, being hurt or B, disappearing for like 2 weeks at a time and then showing up out of nowhere, Mike Williams. and your quarterback at some point has plays with these bad ribs. And the only thing that's missing is just a doctor on the Chargers staff accidentally puncturing Justin Herbert's lung improperly, which, I mean, the fact that they somehow avoided that is a cause for, great celebration for Chargers fans. I think all intents and purposes, I would just say the Chiefs because I think there are less hurdles on paper that what I'm thinking of for them to get to that playoff spot quicker. Whereas I think a little more needs to happen for the Eagles because the NFC, say what we will, I think two of the divisions have at least two teams that are pretty good right now. In the West, it's the Seahawks led by an MVP candidate and the San Francisco 49ers. In the East, it's the Giants and the Cowboys are well above 500. It's the Eagles right now who are 8-1, and the Washington is, I believe they're 500 now, if I'm not mistaken. So, there's a little bit more competition there. So I'll say the AFC, I'll say the Chiefs because I feel like there's more teams that are closer toward the bottom compared to the NFC.
The way I was looking at it, Jurg, is it looks like the Chiefs are closer to clinching their division as opposed to the Eagles are closer to clinching a minimum playoff spot by virtue of eliminating the teams.
And that's why I'm picking the Eagles because I'm looking at the next 3 games on everyone's schedule. The Chiefs have the Chargers this week, and then they have the Rams, which is Chiefs-Rams game is always going to be fun, even though the Rams are terrible, but the Chiefs-Rams game is going to be fun. And then they have the Bengals. So that's a relatively tougher stretch of 3 games. The Eagles have the Colts this week, and then they have the Packers next week, and then the Titans the following week. Eagles-Titans right now could be I hate to say this, could be an early Super Bowl preview, potentially. But here's my thing. So
why did you put that visual in my mind,
dude?
I know. I really did, didn't I? I really did, didn't I? So, but here's my thing. So if the Eagles win 2 of those 3 games, they're 10-2. 10-2, I think, is going to clinch them a playoff berth. Whereas the Chiefs, if they win 2 of those 3 games, they're 9-3, and it's still up in the air because you still have tiebreakers that are a little more flexible in the AFC, I think, than in the NFC. If the Eagles get to 10 wins first, I think it locks up a bid for them. And they could win all 3. They could go 11-1 because I feel like the moves they made in response to losing to my Commanders were excellent for them. To add that defensive line, to go with the strength that they knew they needed to add to. And so I think for me, the Eagles could at minimum clinch a playoff berth first, but I will say this. I think the Chiefs will clinch the division before the Eagles will because the NFC East is just so difficult right now. Even in interdivisional games, it's so difficult. But the Chiefs, like you said, if they beat the Chargers, they have a pathway to the division that no one can touch. But it's going to take a little bit longer just because their schedule is a little tougher than Philadelphia's, I think.
Yeah, I don't blame you there because – and I should just say this off the top of my head, I think the Chargers have a good chance of winning this week because I think it's a do or die game. And I think this is one of the, I normally hate putting this on a quarterback because it's obviously more than just the one player, but I feel like this is going to be a game that people are going to judge the rest of this entire season for Justin Herbert on. I feel like he is going to be judged going forward on this particular game. If they can win and stay within arm's reach, even though they probably may not win the division, if they could get this victory and stay well within the wild card hunt, I think that would be massive for Justin Herbert compared to if they lose this game. We're going to start having questions about Justin Herbert the way that we would have had at the very beginning of his rookie season before he has broken out since then. So, and I hate to do that to him because I have Justin Herbert to me is absolutely phenomenal, but in the same breath, this is a big game for him and this team, and maybe underratedly a big game for Brendan Staley going forward as well, because for as much praise as we want to heap, and obviously we kept his name out of it last week, Rick, I think a lot of people are going to start asking more questions about him if they fail to make the playoffs again this season. So.
Yeah, but I also feel like he's going to get the Stefanski look because he's been the most successful Chargers head coach in a while, and he's still young, got a lot of energy, and at least the team, I believe, believes in him and praises him. So I think he's got the locker room under him. But you're right. You have to improve on last year. And last year, they just missed the postseason. If they don't make it this year, I think year 3 is going to be a hot seed for him. But, I mean, let's see. If they can get a backdoor into the 7th seed, which would knock out the Patriots, make all of us happy, I think that'd be great.
That's assuming the Jets win this week, which I'm hoping so. I think they can.
Lord Elon, make it happen.
No, you have to take into account if the Chiefs lose this week, it becomes a much longer road to win that division because they
Right.
don't play a couple division games for a while. And the Chargers are getting healthier this week. They are expected to have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen back, both practiced in full towards the end of the week. So it might be the healthiest they've been in a long time going into that game. So it's going to be very interesting to see which team wins there.
Yeah.
Moving on.
What'd you say?
Oh, I'm saying moving on to our last game.
Yes, into fact or fiction. We'll start with the Tampa Bay Bucks will win the NFC South.
Ew.
I think as much as we would love to try to gaslight with other teams, let's just be real here. I think it's a fact. I know that it hasn't looked great, and there are still flaws on that team, but the Atlanta Falcons just perpetually don't want to win when they have the chance to ultimately make an impact this season, apparently. They should have won that second Panthers game, and there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't have. So, like, as much as I want to try to stake the claim on XFL MVP PJ Walker or hitting his teammates with helmets on Baker Mayfield, we know the Panthers aren't going to make a run. We know that the New Orleans Saints season is essentially dead. So now it's all on the Falcons, and Falcon's going to Falcon. And I think we've understood what that has been for a very long time now, boys. So I'm going to end up going with the Buccaneers easily. It's going to be a fact. They're going to clinch this division. The only question is how far are they going to go in the playoffs? Because this is probably the weakest playoff teams Brady has had legitimately in a while. I know his last year in New England, I know they technically lost to the Titans in the wild card, but I don't think that was necessarily a weak team per se. I think that was just a team, they caught the wrong team at the wrong time, more so than anything. I think any other first-round matchup, they probably had a better chance to advance there. I think this year, this is probably on paper one of the weaker Brady teams just based off of performance on how they've been. Now watch them win 6 in a row now that we've said that. So
it seems like
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say winning 6 in a row because I'm looking at their schedule going forward. I'm going to be a jerk, by the way, and say it's fiction because they won't win. They'll survive the division, which is, it's the same thing. I know, but just to, be a little clown here.
It's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing at all. Okay. So if I'm looking at Tampa's schedule going forward, obviously they're on a bye this week. So that kind of helps out with getting a rest. And it also was a good bye for them because Atlanta's playing Chicago. And I know that's a game that nobody's really going to watch to see Justin Fields play, but that's a tough game for the Atlanta defense because Justin Fields is coming on strong. Tampa then has Cleveland in Cleveland on the Sunday after Thanksgiving. They host New Orleans. So I'm looking at that right now and I'm saying maybe 7-5 possibly. Then they go to San Francisco. That's tricky. So I say 7-6 there. Then they host Cincinnati. Also tricky, especially with Jamar Chase back. So 7-7. And then it's Arizona, Tampa, Atlanta. They could finish 10-7 or 9-8 and probably still win the division. But let's be real here. If you're telling me Tampa's going to finish 9-8 and win the division, there's going to be wildcard teams that have 10 or 11 wins. So it's not going to be convincing at all. But it's like when the Seahawks or the Rams, I think it was the Seahawks, made it out of the NFC West with a 7-8-1 record or whatever it was and won their division. It's not impressive, but you get into the playoffs, you see what happens. So it's a fact for me because I think there's no real team that I can see stepping up to them. The only way that Tampa can lose is if they trip themselves up. It's possible, but their schedule benefits them. And I think the fact that the rest of the division is just so weak, nobody wants to win the division in that division, basically. So Tampa's going to be the one that says, all right, I'll just take it again. Woohoo, go us, basically. It's a fact, but it's, it's the sizzler of divisions. It's not sexy at all.
Haven't been to a sizzler in a long time.
I know.
All right, and the last one, Rick's New York Giants have a chance to win the NFC East.
Correct that. Rick's wife's New York Giants. Correct that.
Didn't you say that you're gonna share all?
Getting
married.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. Yeah. I know what I said. Leave me alone. Do they have a chance to win the NFC East? I'm gonna say fiction. It pains me to say it, but I'm gonna say fiction. This team has not shown great offensive capabilities. They've been a wonderful story, don't get me wrong. But if you're only scoring a max of 27 points per game and you've got teams that you're playing like the Lions this week who can put up a lot of points on offense, you play the Eagles twice coming up. You've got the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, not to mention you got the Vikings once. The schedule doesn't necessarily favor it. They're ahead of schedule. Absolutely. They're one of the great stories of the season. Absolutely. But I just think there's too many obstacles for them to get to that crown. Now, look, they could surprise us all and be the 1 seed going into the playoffs this year. And that would be amazing for a variety of reasons. But I just don't see it. I think they're going to be a high wild card team, maybe the 5 seed, maybe the 6 seed. But I don't see a division for them. Not this year. I think there's not enough pieces on their offense to justify it. They don't have a true number 1 wide receiver. I mean, if they get Odell Beckham Jr., you have to pray and hope that works for them. But I don't see it. Gun to my head, I don't see it. Fiction.
Well, you have to think that the way their schedule is actually laid out, they do have a direct line. If they were going to make that run, they could be the number 1 seed. They do play. If they could beat the Vikings. If they beat the Vikings and the Eagles twice, the rest of their games are fairly easy. I know you said that they have a Cowboys game in there. They play the Lions at home this week. They play the Commanders twice. They play the Colts at home. Jurg, you think that the Giants have a chance?
Nope. Just straight simple and to the point. The thing is, and Rick, you're being very generous with the point, saying that they could score a max of 27.
I gotta keep her happy, man. I have to be generous.
Fair enough. So I'll be the villain here in the household for today.
That's fine.
They have won in a very unsustainable way this season. Let's be real here. All due respect to Saquon Barkley, I'm very happy to see that he's having a good season for himself, especially in a contract year. But the Giants themselves have won in a very unsustainable way. Daniel Jones, he hasn't played good this season. He just hasn't played terrible compared to previous years. He's not throwing as many interceptions. He's not fumbling the ball as much. Does that technically mean he's playing good? Sure. But what is he on? How many passing touchdowns does he have this season?
What's the square root of nothing?
7, I think.
Yeah,
maybe.
basically.
He's barely at a passing touchdown a game. In today's league, I know once it gets to the playoffs, we're always talking about, you win with the defense, you win with the running game, da-da-da-da-da. You still need the quarterback to maybe pull out a game here where they could throw for 300-plus yards and 3-4 touchdowns. Can Daniel Jones do that in a game where it matters the most? I highly doubt it. You mentioned, yes, Justin, there is the conceivable notion that the path to the 1st seed is there for them. There's also a path to them falling dangerously out of the picture.
Yeah.
To be fair as well.
Yeah.
And that's something that, look, I know they've had this amazing season, and we've said it before on this show. When the New York sports teams are good, the sport in and of itself is good. I'm happy that the Jets and Giants are doing good because A, that's good for the sport, and B, that's good for the fans. But we're not talking about the very real possibility that not just the rest of the season, this team in and of itself, what are they, 6-2 or 6-3 right now?
7-2.
7-2? They could be 2-7. We realize that, right? They've won a lot of these games via 1 score and a certain ball bouncing their way. And the reason why I bring that up is because how many teams in the past have we seen that are 10, 11-win teams that make the playoffs that year, and they've won all these 1-score games, and the next season they regressed to a 6-win team? How many Matthew Stafford Lions teams did that? How many Los Angeles Chargers teams in the second half of Phillip Rivers' career did that? So the Giants,
I would make the argument that the difference between those teams is those teams were bad teams with a good quarterback. So a good quarterback could mask a lot of those things. This is a good team with an arguably bad quarterback. He's got 8 touchdowns and 1,500 yards and 2 interceptions. Hasn't thrown a pick since September. So you're winning in spite of your quarterback as opposed to your quarterback winning in spite of your team. I would say this is a little bit more sustainable than that, just because good defense and a great running game, which is what the Giants are winning on, is a recipe for success in the NFL. It's been proven. Again, I'm not saying that they don't need to improve in their quarterback, but it's a little different than those comparisons, I think.
So I'm going to buttress up Jurg's point here just by saying 3 things. Number one, if you go back to the preseason, this year the Giants are 10-2, including their 3-0 preseason. Every single win has been by 1 score. Every single win. So the preseason was a harbinger of the future to come. Number 2, Darius Slayton is the number 1 receiver. He's only got 327 receiving yards. I put that up in Backyard Football the other day. So, I mean, it's not ideal. And number 3, Justin, to your point, yes, there's a path to number 1 seed. They have arguably no home field advantage the rest of the way. This game against the Lions tomorrow, it's the Lions. Fine. The Cowboys are in Dallas. You have 2 games against the Commanders and the Eagles, both of whom have traveling fan bases. The Colts game's not going to matter that much in January. And then you go to Minnesota. So you have no home field advantage the rest of the way. I know it doesn't account for much in the pro game like it does in college, but there's still something to be said for the fact that there's no home field advantage for them realistically in the games, because the 2 home games that you could argue, there's nothing really on the line, because the Lions, as much as I love them, aren't really playing for much. And the Colts have a non-entity as their head coach. Again, he got the win last week, great, but then the 4 games that they have against the Commanders and the Eagles, interdivision, home and away, there's no home field advantage because Washington will travel well and Philadelphia will travel well. And then the game at Dallas and the game at Minnesota, Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Eve.
By that argument, you have to give the Giants credit in the fact that there's not going to be home field advantage for the other team either. Both teams travel. Every team in that division travels for division games.
Yes.
They're always tough.
I agree with you. However, Philadelphia and Washington are very tough places to play, even without that. And I was listening to the game last week, the Giants game, and Carl Banks, who was on the radio, said something very interesting. He said, this is the first time in years that MetLife Stadium has felt like a home. Not a house, not an arena, but an actual home where the Giants play. It took them 9 games in this season to feel that way. Like, to me, that's... The Giants fans aren't sold yet. And again, it's been a great story. It really has been. But the magic has to run out at some point, because you can't live and die by 1-score games. And you can't live and die with having Kenny Golladay, who was a number 1 in Detroit or number 2 in Detroit, not being around at all with all the money you paid for him. And they don't really have another target like that. Slayton, fine, but Saquon Barkley's one guy. Daniel Jones is one guy. They don't have extra role players around to make a considerable effort. When David Sills is your top target, you got a problem.
Let's also remember that at the end of the day, this is perfect factors for this team coming together that it hasn't the last couple seasons. This is the first time since his rookie season that Saquon Barkley's healthy. And this is a defense, for all intents and purposes, that is overperforming by the preseason standard for them. Because remember, they had to cut James Bradbury. They didn't trade him to the Eagles because they don't trade in division. They had to cut him and lose him for nothing. Leonard Williams, there was conversations about him. I've said it on podcasts before. I think Leonard Williams is kind of overrated, because if you look at his game logs and seasons, he'll have a season of 9 sacks, but one of those games he'll have 3 sacks. So the rest of the season,
I think he's overrated too, but that's for a totally different reason. He's terrible as a chat.
We know, and we know because he came out of USC. But the thing is that we need to understand that this is a perfect storm for the Giants right now. And the fact that they are 7-2, this is not to take away from the start they've had, but now we're talking about finishing the season. And you need to continue this luck, a unsustainable way of winning. I know you're thinking of running game and defense, Justin, and I kind of get that argument, but this is a different NFL now. Come January and February, we can maybe make the argument different, but this is the last half of November versus the second, technically the first week of January because these greedy owners. But this is this is a team trying to win the old school way in the new school thing. And looking at their opponents, if they go 500 to finish the season, I would be thoroughly impressed with them, because you tell me Vikings, you tell me Cowboys, you tell me 2 Commanders games, you tell me 2 Eagles games. At best, 2 and 4 on paper to me, because I think that I think the Vikings are better than them. I think the Eagles are better than them. And I think they could split with the Commanders, because the Commanders and the Giants are just like that. This is not an impressive team. They have not won in impressive ways. And while it's been a feel-good story for now, eventually, fairy tales end at some point. There's a reason why fairy tales aren't 1,000-page encyclopedias. They eventually end.
And the thing is, too, Justin and Jurg, I think you'll agree with me on this. We saw on Monday night the blueprint to how to beat the Eagles. Can you really trust Daniel Jones in this offense to stay on the field for 40 minutes and keep Jalen Hurts off the field for 40 minutes in a 60-minute game?
Let me just say, I wasn't going to say anything about that because I do think that the Eagles will likely probably sweep the Giants. The blueprint to me seemed like they were going to take their time, shut down Jalen Hurts' passing attack, force them to try and run the ball through their defensive line, and then run the ball. That sounds exactly like what the Giants have been doing all year long. The unsustainable part to me is that the Giants have not played well early in games and that they've gone down 1 or 2 scores and have had to come back, and this team is not built to do such a thing.
They're a second-half team. Absolutely.
They're a second-half team.
But the big thing with that...
Let's say you're right, Jerk. Let's say they go 2-4. Let's say they split the Eagles games by some grace of God, and they split the Commanders games, and they lose to the Vikings and the Cowboys. All right? They're low in the division. Sure, that would make them 2-4 in the division. But then they would also have a win against the Lions, because I can't imagine the Lions are going to come into the Meadowlands and beat the Giants with that defense. And they also play the Colts at home. So then they finish the season 4-4 at 500, and they're 12-5,
11-6,
11-6,
4-4, 11-6. Yeah.
That's still pretty good schedule. And you got to remember that the Eagles also have a daunting schedule coming through now.
Right, but the thing that you said was, can they win the division? We talked about who would clinch a playoff spot first earlier with the Eagles or the Chiefs, and the Eagles, 3 games coming up.
If you remember, we weren't talking about the Eagles winning the division, because realistically, the Eagles aren't going to clinch the division until week 15, 16, maybe even 17.
Yeah,
and that's if things go well, because of just how strong the division is. The Cowboys have also played very, very good football, and the Giants have been doing well.
Well, the Cowboys should bring Cooper Rush back. I mean,
that's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a long point. Look at that. Look at us giving time to the NFC East.
That was what I want out of my games. The argument. There we go.
Well, there you go.
And everyone against each other.
You had to stoke the fire at some point, so that's fine.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, speaking of going back and forth, this game eventually became that in the fourth quarter. Ladies and gentlemen, seamless transition. I know. Thank you. Let's move on. We had our fun. We talked a little bit of football there. Now comes the full transition, all football. I mean, maybe we might have some fun talking about this one. Who knows? Very quickly here, boys. Minnesota Vikings, Buffalo Bills. What a game. Probably the game of the year at this point, to say the least. I mean, does it outduel the Seahawks and Lions, matinee that we had earlier in the season? I would say so. Rick was like, are you serious right now? And the answer is yes. But in all seriousness, let's look at this game. The Minnesota Vikings going into Buffalo to face the Bills. The final score was 33-30 in overtime. But the way we got there, what a trip this game was. So it was an interesting start, just very quickly going through the game log. Minnesota drew first blood by scoring. Buffalo would eventually take a 17-7 lead. Minnesota would get a field goal. Buffalo would go up 24-10 and then 27-10. And you thought, Bills 17-point game, Josh Allen, that defense, da-da-da. Dalvin Cook shows why he is a slept-on running back still to this point, which I like. You talk about Christian McCaffrey, you talk about the renaissance of Saquon Barkley. I think we've been forgetting that there's a guy in Minnesota who's done a pretty admirable job of filling Adrian Peterson's shoes in terms of running backs in Minnesota. 81-yard touchdown strike to bring it to a 10-point game. CJ Ham then gets it to within 1 score. They missed the point after, which is typical Minnesota. And then the insanity ensued. So Buffalo up 27-23, Minnesota with a drive to really put themselves in a great position. Like Justin said, they're probably going to end up clinching their division because of the Packers, as we eventually learned. But this was big for Minnesota. So after the CJ Ham score, they force a quick punt by the Bills, 3 plays, -5 yards for Buffalo. And then comes Minnesota, and they're going. And on 4th and 18, boys, a 32-yard dart to Justin Jefferson from, as Pat McAfee once called him, primetime Kirk Cousins. And apparently the definition of primetime Kirk Cousins is 1 p.m. games. Because if the sun is still high in the sky when the game is being played, Kirk Cousins might be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. That absolute dart to Justin Jefferson, arguably the best catch some have ever seen. We're not going to have that argument because it's a waste of time on the show. But it is absolutely insane there. Then eventually comes the situation. It's 4th and goal. incomplete pass, but a penalty, a defensive offsides. Dalvin Cook gets bailed out there because he absolutely botched it. He should have caught that. And then 4th and goal at the Buffalo 1. They try a quarterback sneak with Kirk Cousins up the middle. It didn't go so well. Ooh, not looking good. Buffalo looks to be up. It looks like it's over. And then Buffalo tries, since they're on the 1 yard line. They snap the ball. The snap, or I should say snap with quotations, because the snap is fumbled. It is botched. Minnesota falls on it. And they take the lead. 30-27. The Vikings, the Purple People Eaters 2.0, are up. But then the Buffalo Bills, my oh my, did they make a run? Because Josh Allen, apparently, he took lessons from Patrick Mahomes last year. 35 seconds, too much time. The Bills marched down the field. They marched down the field because they got a completion that probably should have been incomplete. They're able to get down the field. They tie the game 30-30. But then Minnesota, field goal and OT to take the lead. And then final play of the game, Josh Allen throws a rough interception to Patrick Peterson. Yes, he's still in the lead, ladies and gentlemen. And it's 33-30. Obviously, I didn't do enough justice. If you want even more majesty, you got to go watch the highlights. But guys, what a game. What a wild performance. Minnesota Vikings storming all the way the hell back in that 4th quarter, scoring 2 touchdowns there, a total of 13 points. That in and of itself is not necessarily the most impressive thing, technically speaking, but just the way that it all played out. So, Rick, I want to throw it to you first. This is just on the 4th quarter. Dissect it whichever way you want to, but especially talk about the focus, the 2 premier plays in that, in those final 2 minutes, because it happened in the last 2 minutes. The Justin Jefferson catch and the Josh Allen, fumble.
It does, but you got to start with the fact that at 27-10, it was a 1-play drive. That was the first play of that drive for Dalvin Cook, an 81-yard run. That's turned the tide, basically. All right, so a couple things here. Number one, the Justin Jefferson catch was incredible. One of the best we've ever seen. Would I have taken the points, though, on 4th and goal instead of trying to run a no-nonsense, terrible help quarterback sneak? Justin, you and I will remember this as Jets fans. Do you remember Vinny Testaverde, or was it Chad Pennington? The sneak against Seattle where he was clearly down. It was before instant replay. He was clearly down before the goal line. It was like 99 or 2000. And no replay, so the touchdown counted. So, I was like, why would you run a quarterback sneak? And then if I'm Buffalo, now, normally I'd hate this rule, but in this way it would work. If I'm Buffalo, take the safety. Like, instead of trying to run at the 1 yard line, take the safety, because it'd be 27-25. You run some time off the clock, punt the ball away to Minnesota and make them try and beat you on defense again. They showed that you bent and didn't break, and their field goal kicker botched the kick after a run by C.J. Ham. Go Augustana Vikings of South Dakota, the fullback coming in for a touchdown. Like, that was a big botch. Buffalo came back, you're right. Josh Allen learned from Patrick Mahomes. They got a gift of a catch, no catch, and then another gift of the DPI, which I still hate the fact that it's a spot foul, because then it's like a 37-yard penalty instead of 15, but neither here nor there. The Vikings come back, they get their field goal, and then criminally underthrown that ball was. I'm doing my best Yoda impression. Criminally underthrown that ball was by Josh Allen at the end of the game. Like, I don't know whether I think it was either Diggs or Davis overran their route or whether Allen just short-armed that. I mean, we know that his elbow was a little funky, but that was a bad throw on his part. And so that leads to the question, did the Vikings win this game, or did Buffalo just fall apart at the end? You could make an argument on both ways there. I mean, yeah, Minnesota stormed back, but Buffalo, after that Dalvin Cook touchdown, interception, punt, fumble return for a touchdown at the goal line, the field goal where they were basically Kansas City 2.0, and then the pick. Like, those last 5 drives by Buffalo were not good at all, except for that one that led to the game-tying field goal. And again, even that one was the catch, no catch, the questionableness of it. If they had went back to it, reviewed it, and then determined it was no catch, I think Buffalo would have been dead in the water at that point. I don't think they would have been able to come back. So, Minnesota did a great job of coming back, and it was a really signature win for Kevin O'Connell in his first season. But I think you can make an argument that Buffalo lost this game as much as Minnesota won it.
Yeah, very fair, very fair. By the way, want to quick shout out. Stephon Diggs also had a pretty wild catch earlier in the game as well before Justin Jefferson.
That was who cares?
Yeah, no, very very true. But I'm just saying he had quite the game himself. Seeing him and Justin Jefferson, like it's always fun to point that out because those guys were traded for one another. Because the first round pick that Buffalo used to get Stephon Diggs turned into Justin Jefferson, basically. So that's always something to point out. Justin, obviously, give all your thoughts as well when it comes to the fourth quarter. I want you to go on it, but I want you to also finish with answering this potential question that I'm seeing floated around now. Is this game just one of those, ugly losses for Buffalo that Rick obviously points out? Or is this a cause for concern that maybe Buffalo might be slipping a little bit in the AFC here?
If you guys remember what I said at the beginning of the year about Buffalo, I was not sold on them coming in here. Now, they actually did a lot during the season so far to curb those thoughts. They played a lot of good games, but Buffalo has the cardinal sin of doing what truly good teams don't do, and that's losing the games they're supposed to win. If you look at their losses this year, you can make the argument that there were some issues. They should have won that Miami game. The Jets, I love them. Their defense played amazing. Buffalo, if I'm not correct, Buffalo is worlds better than the Jets, just like talent-wise. And don't get me wrong, the Jets are getting better. The Jets are a good team. I truly believe the Jets are a top 15 team in the league. Buffalo's a better team. This is one of those games where the Vikings, they're not the best team in the league. They have some of the best players for sure. I think Dalvin Cook clearly gets disrespected all the time. I heard Mike Tannenbaum say he's a B+ running back this week. Like, he's part of the reason they were in that game. He's one of the best running backs in the league today. Justin Jefferson arguably is the best receiver today. But the Vikings are one of those teams where they may not capitalize on all of their opportunities, but you cannot make mistakes against a team like that. And you saw what happened. The Bills made a huge mistake on the goal line. That fumble was a huge mistake. And the Vikings are capitalizing. They just are, especially with the way that pass rush has played this year. So I think it was a statement game for both teams. I think the Vikings were, it doesn't matter how many 1-score games we're in, we can beat any single team in this league. And if you want to give us the Eagles again at 1:00 as opposed to a night game, we'll take on the Eagles again too. And I really think that the Vikings could beat any team in this league. I can absolutely see them going to the Super Bowl. I could see them winning the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily know if I think they will, but I can see them really going on a run this year. I thought I could see the Bills going on a run this year. And they're that ugly little question that reared its head last year. And again, I know they were a coin flip away from beating the Chiefs last year. What is it about this Bills team that causes them to lose? They just find this little way. They play a fantastic game. They find this way to just let it slip from their fingers. I don't know if it's the curse of Jim Kelly. I don't know what's going on here, but there's a reason that this team hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, and it's rearing its ugly head again this season. As much as I thought the Bills were going to be that team this year, after watching them for 6-7 games, the Jets' loss was bad. The Vikings' loss is almost unforgivable.
Well, it's not the curse of Jim Kelly. It's the curse of Scott Norwood. Let's get that right, because he missed that field goal in the first Super Bowl that they had. But you're absolutely right. There's little hiccups here and there that just – I mean, there's a reason why we all picked the Rams to win the first game of the year. I mean, it didn't happen, of course. They got destroyed. But there was a reason why we picked the Rams, because I think we all had a thought that at some point the real Buffalo Bills were going to show themselves. And, yeah, they're a very talented team. But Josh Allen comes from that all-or-nothing type of quarterback play where, as great as quarterback as he is, and he's an excellent quarterback, you can argue that he's going to make mistakes on a greater ratio than some of these other quarterbacks that we've seen lead their team to a Super Bowl. Like, I think, as good as he is, I think that he's likely to be a guy that will lose you the game more than win it for you. And again, to that point too, You have 1st and 10 at your own 1. There's 41 seconds to go. If you just take it and run out the back of the end zone, that wastes maybe 5 seconds off the clock, 6 seconds off the clock, whatever it is. 35 seconds left, punt it to the Vikings, give them 70 yards to try and kick a field goal where Greg Joseph just missed the PAT. I would have played that better than, the way that they played it. That's just my thing.
Listen, you could say you could play it all. You can't fumble.
You can't.
You take a snap how many times a day from under center? Every day of your life at this point? That cannot happen.
Yeah.
And look, like I said, I'll bring it back to last year. Does anyone remember what the number 1 seeds record was last year?
Tennessee.
Both the Chiefs and Titans. The Tennessee Titans were 12-5. Tennessee was the number 1 seed. Buffalo was 11-6 with a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
9-6. Yep.
I don't remember the circumstances. Would home field advantage made a big difference if they were to play the Chiefs in Buffalo as opposed to have played them in Kansas City?
Probably.
That flip?
It might have gotten snowed out. There's that.
Little things like that. Little losses like that. And again, it's an NFC matchup. Like it almost is the least painful loss you could have had, even though you lost it in painful fashion. It doesn't affect you in the conference. It's not going to affect you in the. Well, I mean, it is going to affect you in the division actually now because being that so tight. But normally it wouldn't do anything for you. You lost to a good team outside the conference. These small little things where you have something in your pocket and you just let it fly by is the difference between a really good team and a championship team.
Yeah. Great. I think what that game showed us is that it's an old adage that I don't think gets said enough because I think in all sports, we fall victim to always wanting to anoint a team as great or elite before we've seen it. And I think the number one thing is that great teams go for the kill. And say what you will, you might have your thoughts about certain teams, but if there is one team in this league that I know goes for the kill every time, there's a reason why the Kansas City Chiefs, yes, Buffalo has beaten them the last couple times in the regular season. Yes, the Tennessee Titans whooped them in the regular season last year. But in the AFC Championship game against the Titans, in the AFC Championship game against the Bills, and the AFC Divisional game last year, the Chiefs went for the kill every single time against those three. Like, great teams go for the kill. Elite quarterbacks kill you. They end you. They as Kobe said, they cut your heart out. And I just don't know right now, for all the talent the Bills have, I think you kind of bring up a point, Justin, where, and I know this narrative hasn't been thrown around with the Bills, but are they, like, you got to have a feeling here that maybe somewhere in the back of all these guys' minds that they are carrying the demons of a franchise that made it to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost all 4. That they are carrying the demons of a franchise that, let's be real here, since the year 2000, they were irrelevant for 15 years. Let's be real here. Like, for all 3 of us growing up, the Buffalo Bills were just there. Like, they were nothing special. They had some players here.
They were a doormat, man.
Yeah, they were there. They were a doormat.
I don't remember them being good for a long time.
Yeah. And these guys, like, this is the new generation of the Bills. This is something completely different that, a whole generation of football fans did not grow up with. We did not grow up with the Bills being a Super Bowl contender. We grew up with the Bills being good at best to a doormat. This is something new, and I think these guys are still learning that. And that's not to disrespect any of the players. That's not to disrespect the coaching staff. It's just some people don't have it. Some people don't have the final killing instinct in them to finish the job. Yeah. And here's the thing, not like, I know you mentioned with champions, Justin, not every single champion at the end of the day, like, I'm sure if we go back in the pantheon of history, by chance teams won, but did teams have the real killing impact, like the final killing blow that we're talking about here? Some teams just don't, but some teams could end up winning the Super Bowl. That's just how it goes.
I think a lot of it too has to do with coaching as well. Because I mean, you talk about Kansas City, Andy Reid has been there before, and he knows how to win games like that. New England, Bill Belichick, hate him, but he's been there before, and he knows how to do it. Sean McDermott still doesn't really know that yet. And I mean, I'll go back to this. Buffalo, in that run of 4 Super Bowls in a row, was the number 1 seed in the AFC 3 years. So Marv Levy got them to the highest point. The only game they were close to that first one, they lost 2019. Next year, 37-24. Following year, 52-17, when they were the 4 seed in the AFC that came out and played Dallas. And then the last year of that run, 30-13, a rematch against Dallas. Again, Marv Levy didn't have that killer instinct when it came to the postseason. I don't think Sean McDermott does either, at least not yet. Maybe he'll develop it, but he also lost his offensive coordinator and his quarterback coach to the New York Giants. So he's got the guys that know the offense. Ken Dorsey knows the offense, but he's not Brian Daboll. He's not Mike Kafka. He doesn't have it yet.
Well, let me just say also, it's been a problem that the Bills have had for a few years now on the field. You got to stop the run better.
Yeah.
You can't be giving up 80-yard touchdowns with a 10-point lead to teams that have guys like Dalvin Cook. You know what I mean? They've consistently struggled against the run. And I'm not sure if it's a scheme thing because they're going all out to go after the quarterback. I know that their secondary has played well. They're decent at linebacker. They sack the quarterback. They get a lot of sacks. You need to stop the run. They almost let the Packers come back in that game. And I know that they ended up winning by 10 points.
And to your point, too.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been that close.
To your point, Justin, they got Nick Chubb this week.
Yeah.
You want to stop the run? Stop a top 5 running back in a dome because your stadium has 6 feet of snow in it.
Yeah.
No, listen, the blueprint is there. If I'm Cleveland, I'm trying to confuse Josh Allen, and I'm running the ball, and I'm keeping him off the field. And when he's on the field, I'm doing my best to make sure he doesn't understand what our schemes are. If Buffalo keeps turning the ball over and they can't stop the run, they're in for a long season.
We're starting to see Josh Allen's old habits come back, like the habits we saw in his first 2 years. We're starting to see a lot of that come back. Yeah. We saw a little bit last season, and we're starting to see why a lot of people had questions in him because I know he's proven a lot of people wrong, and he is a great quarterback, but like we're seeing some bad decision making here. Like you said, Rick, I'm still trying to figure out what happened on that final play because look, this is not Arizona Cardinals Patrick Peterson that he threw that interception to. No. This is not that kind of DB.
Let me just say also for all the things we've just said, Buffalo's still got to be a top 3 team to come out of the AFC.
Yeah.
This might have been the wake-up call that they needed. They do have a rematch against the Jets. They do have a rematch against the Dolphins.
And they got the Patriots twice.
Well, slow our roll. They're still the Bills. They're still the best team in that division.
I think, Justin...
This could have been the wake-up call that they needed, unfortunately, because they still play the Jets once.
A similar thing happened last season. Remember, when it was still close and the Patriots beat them in that first meeting last year, that was the wake-up call to eventually motivate them, at least last season, to end up keeping and getting the division for themselves.
Okay. For a team that's played this well this far, to have a wake-up call against an 8-1 team where they should have won, I don't know how happy I would be to be playing the Bills this week. As much as the blueprint is there for the Cleveland Browns, I don't know if I'd want to be the team to play this week because the dome works both ways also.
All I'm going to say, too, to end this for my sake is that we talked earlier in the season about guys who are going to be breakout candidates this year. We talked about somebody on Cleveland's defense, didn't we? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Okay.
Listen, Cole Kmet's got 5 touchdowns. Anything's possible.
Oh, perfect transition right there to our midseason awards, ladies and gentlemen. Kind of, because once again, technically midseason was last week, but regardless, we need the whole crew here if we're going to do something like this. So that's why we were more than willing to push it back. We also kind of didn't have the idea last year. But semantics. Midseason awards, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about all the main awards. We're going to give our winners to this point. Yes, I'm talking about the 7 main awards. I had to double check my math there for a sec. My Scott Steiner mathematics there and make sure that I was doing all of that correctly. We have Offensive Rookie and Defensive Rookie of the Year. We have Comeback Player of the Year. We have Coach of the Year. We have Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and of course, the Most Valuable Player. Let's start with the Young Bucks here, guys. Well, let's do that. I was going to say ladies and gentlemen, but no lady co-host on this podcast. Let's start with the Young Bucks. Let's start with Offensive Rookie of the Year for the hell of it. An award that really became wide open after Breece Hall's injury. I think had he stayed healthy, I think this would be real quick. I think we would all go with Breece Hall had he been healthy the entire year. Just a shout out to him because he was phenomenal. And hopefully he comes back next season. He's absolutely killer as well, to say the very least. So, irregardless, let's go. Who do I want to throw it to first? Rick, because you kind of had like quick last words there about Vikings-Bills. I want to be fair here. So I'll throw it to you first. Your Offensive Rookie of the Year to this point of the season is?
Well, I'm going to run through these very quickly just because I feel like I need to just truncate what I'm saying a little bit. I'm going to go a little outside the box with some of these picks as well. So my Offensive Rookie of the Year this year is Dameon Pierce from Houston. The Texans' offense is terrible. We know this. But Pierce has really been a surprising, shining example for them. He's 6th in the league in rushing yards. He's a very dynamic running back for them. And I think it's a surprise because, Breece Hall was the number one guy, and you could say any of the top receivers that we have, but Dameon Pierce for me has really shown a surprising output, and I would give it to them because Houston needs something, and they don't have anything else. So Dameon Pierce from the Texans is my rookie of the year on the offense.
That's fair. Justin?
I'm gonna have to give it to Kenneth Walker. As much as I love to talk about a lot of these receivers that are having really great years, Christian Watson all of a sudden just exploded. Kenneth Walker is like very quietly one of the best running backs in football, and you could see his stats. He's having such a great year. He didn't start the first 5 games. I mean, he came in midway through that 5th game, and now he's got almost 600 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. So he's having a fantastic year. He's actually one of the driving factors behind that Seattle Seahawks offense that's playing so well right now. And he has come in and made an immediate impact once given the opportunity to play. So he's got to be, at least for me, my offensive rookie of the year.
I'm going to three-peat in terms of running backs, and I'm going to repeat when it comes to the winner. Kenneth Walker, his first 4 games of the season, all less than 10 carries. That 4th game, though, 8 carries, 88 yards, 1 touchdown, and that was the jumping off point to eventually them giving him more production. Aside from that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, he's played very well for the rest of it for Seattle. He's played absolutely phenomenal. 121 carries, 587 yards, and 7 touchdowns just on the ground alone. He's been great. If he had gotten the starting gig from the jump, I would shudder to think what his stats would be. He would be very close to the top of the league, along with Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. So my offensive rookie of the year will go to Kenneth Walker as well. But shout out to Pierce as well. I think that's a great,
very good year.
Yeah. The skill position players just in general, because obviously this was not a quarterback heavy class. Like the skill position players in general have played great. The wide receivers, like you mentioned, Justin, I would say for the most part, most of the first round guys are actually playing pretty well, but no one has set themselves far apart compared to.
There hasn't been enough consistency
exactly
in those positions.
Agreed.
Exactly. So that is offensive rookie of the year. Defensive rookie of the year. This should be an interesting one because with the thing with offensive and defensive rookie of the year awards, like it's different. Like you can pick whatever criteria you want to pick a player off of. If you want to go counting stats, if you want to talk about team impact, but they may not necessarily have the raw numbers. It's a different amount of things that you could go with when it comes to offensive or defensive rookie. Although I think there is one guy in particular that'll end up being defensive rookie of the year. So, Justin, I'm going to throw it to you first. Who's your defensive rookie of the year?
Why even ask, man? Why even
Shall
ask?
we
Listen, I don't even have enough wings for all the sauce that I want in my life right now. I cannot believe that the Jets have taken a guy that's played this well so early in his career. I mean, I was looking at Pro Football Focus the other day, but removing the quarterbacks, the most valuable players, the top 4 most valuable players for their team went Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Sauce Gardner. All right. He has played out of his mind. And he's made a mistake here and there. I know they had the Diggs reception. It's not like he's given up nothing. He's having a lights out year. And you got to give credit to DJ Reed also on the other side of the ball because he's played fantastic. And they are an electric duo for the Jets secondary, who's playing so well. But yeah, to me, defensively, it's not really close. You got to give credit to the guys that are out there. I know Tariq Woolen's having an excellent year. Even Stingley's playing very, very well. Sauce has been so good, dude.
Yeah, for sure. This has been a cornerback class. The corners, normally it's a pass rusher or a linebacker to win this award, but the corners have really jumped out this season. But,
shout out to Aiden Hutchinson, too.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned it, Woolen's played great. He's been a gem for Seattle. Stingley is being the number 1 corner in Houston. And as great as they've been, there's just been someone that's been that much better than them. And Rick, I'll throw it to you so you can finish off so we can have Jets fans bookend it. But to me, the most amazing thing about Sauce Gardner is that even when he has a bad play, he bounces right back and makes a great play the next time he's involved. Like it's so hard to teach that in young corners. I think it takes a certain mindset to have that as a cornerback. I think very easily he's a top 5 corner in the league already, and he might be in the top 3 conversation at the end of the season. And I don't think that's hyperbole. He is. I can't name someone off the top of my head. Maybe Jalen Ramsey in his rookie season was the last time a corner had this kind of impact immediately, like from day one, from year one. And I think he's even outdone that.
They were comparing his stats to other top corners in the years that they've been. Like they put up his stats with Revis in 2009, Woodson, and who was the 4th one? I don't know, but they were putting up his pass defense,
Right.
QBR against, passing yards allowed. His averages were in between all of these guys who were defensive player of the years,
Right. In those
or
seasons.
top candidates those years. He's really playing like a top guy in the league right now.
Rick, give us the hat trick.
Ahmad Gardner has turned Revis Island into the sauce pit, basically. The only thing that I will say, because I had it between Sauce and Tariq Woolen, you might give some votes to Woolen if he continues his interception trend, because they're relatively close in passes defended and interceptions. Sauce is 13 PDs and 2 interceptions. Woolen has 9 passes defended and 5 picks this year. So if Tariq Woolen gets a few more interceptions, it'll be a lot closer than I think people realize. And that's credit to Tariq Woolen being a third-round pick at UTSA, who's really been a star for that Seattle defense, a surprising defense. But yeah, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson would have been my other guy, but he only has 19 tackles, along with 5.5 sacks, so it's not ideal. But yeah, I mean, it's sauce all the way. Again, shout out to Tariq Woolen. I was high on him in our draft episode for a reason, and he's shown to be a really strong guy. I think it's sauce, and I think Woolen's a close second place.
Fair. Once again, this show, if we prove one thing, go back and watch our 3-round mock, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of guys we picked in the second and third round are performing pretty well in the NFL right now. Just saying.
Yep.
All right, let's go to comeback player of the year, because I feel like if by the order of the awards, I think that's probably 5th in the order remaining. Comeback player of the year. Again, this is really like how do you want to describe it? Like, there's no one way to go with comeback player of the year, because it could go to anyone. It could go to offense or defense. It could go to any position. It could be about the story. It could be about the numbers. There's no right answer here. It's which one do you want to choose more so. So I don't know what you guys are going to go with. I kind of don't know what I want to go with here either. So it's an interesting one. Rick, if you want to try to start us off here, who's your comeback player of the year if you had to pick one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys on the offensive side that I think you could pick. I'm going to try and give a shout out to a guy who's probably not going to get a lot of love, but Travis Etienne for me and Jacksonville is a guy that I think is worthy of this, because again, all the hype that came out of him being a first-round pick last year, and in preseason he has a significant injury and he misses most of the year. To come back this year, and I feel like he hasn't missed a beat, 725 rushing yards with 4 touchdowns so far for a Jacksonville offense that needed a little extra spark. I know they got a lot of guys on the wide receiver core, but I think Travis Etienne probably is going to be a guy who's going to not get as much love as he deserves. But I think he's a guy that has a good story as well. I mean, there's a ton of them. There really are. You could go through all the list of the guys that we're thinking of. For me, I'll throw it to Etienne, but I think if I have to give the winner of this for me, it's Geno Smith. It is. I mean, I think the hardship for Geno Smith is not personal; it's more professional based, because there's a lot of talk about who he was coming out of college, and a lot of talk about his professional, and we saw the oversleeping the team meeting in Los Angeles with the Jets, and all of that, or San Diego, wherever it was. He's come back and he's balled out. He's been the guy who he was at West Virginia, who was the guy who was highly touted coming out. It sucks that he's not on the Jets, but good on you, Geno, that you've done that. Start your Ring of Honor candidacy well with a comeback player of the year on. Why not? Fine.
He may add one more award at the end of this. You never know.
Don't say it.
Rick, that was kind of mean for you to steal Jarek's thunder like that.
Yeah, right? Come on now. I had this whole
We all knew it was coming.
Yeah, well, I want to see if Jarek's quick on his feet and can pick somebody else, or if he's going to wax poetic and write a love sonnet to Geno Smith like Shakespeare.
Hey, I've always been a fan of Geno Smith. I was behind the decision for him to replace Eli Manning. I was behind that. Not really, but
no. Good.
All right, Justin, who's your comeback player of the year?
That is a good question. So I've been kind of stuck between 2 guys. But I guess if you really had to do it, I'm gonna go with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry missed half the year last year, and he was electric at the beginning of last year, but to come off the foot injury that he had and just immediately be the guy. I mean, if you think about his stats, rushing the ball, last week he had 35 rushing yards. Saquon had 149, 156. Do you guys remember?
Something like that,
Yeah.
Yeah, Saquon actually passed him by 6 yards. He did 150 something yards to pass Derrick Henry barely. All right. And look, he's not having the year that we thought he might, which is kind of absurd considering he's almost at 1,000 yards already. But yeah, I mean, he's still the king. He's still out there. And I was just gonna give my shout out to AJ Brown also because he's a guy that missed a lot of time last year, had a somewhat disappointing year, and you have to give him a lot of credit for the MVP votes that Jalen Hurts is getting now because he's having an excellent year.
And Jerg, one before you go, also, he doesn't have the stats, but Brian Robinson, I think, clearly has to get some consideration as well for the outside stuff, and for him to have come back and actually be playing this year means something. So I think that's he's a rookie, so it probably won't happen, but that's a good comeback.
Come back as a rookie, but
still, I think there'll be some press about that and some love for that too.
The fact that he played is crazy,
and he had 86 yards and a score against Philadelphia on Monday night. I think is pretty impressive too. Jared, tell us all about Geno Smith.
Well, I just want to give credit to all the other, candidates as well. Like Justin mentioned, Derrick Henry going out last season, a foot injury as well, that we had a lot of questions if that was going to slow him down. Like he might be a quarter step slower compared to what his pace was last year, but he's still being phenomenal. Saquon Barkley, this is kind of a multi-year thing in terms of him being injured, him being questioned as why did the Giants waste the number 2 overall pick on him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And for him to come back and he is the driving force offensively behind any of the success they've had this season, he deserves a lot of credit. And one more running back, funny enough, in terms of dealing with injuries, is Christian McCaffrey. Like this is a guy who for several seasons after that 1K rushing and 1K receiving yard season, one of the greatest seasons that we've seen, which I don't think he got Offensive Player of the Year for because Michael frickin' Thomas is the guy we gave it to that season, if I'm not mistaken. At least I think they were the same season.
Well, we didn't give it to him.
I know. We would have given it to Christian McCaffrey, but
Absolutely.
they wanted to give it to a slant boy. But irregardless, like Christian McCaffrey deserves a lot of credit there because it's been 2 seasons filled with injuries after that, and then to come back and being the key weapon for the San Francisco 49ers, it's all absolutely outstanding. And I wouldn't be surprised if come ballots, this is going to be probably one of the most difficult awards to ballot because so many guys deserve it. And you're going to write because how many guys do they say? Like usually top 3, top 5 that you have to write for a ballot. You're going to write your number 5, you're going to write your number 4. And this time, they're not going to write this guy off the ballot. They're going to write him in at number 1. And he will write back with a letter of thanks. Geno Smith is my comeback player of the year. Like Rick said, this is more of a growth. Like I'm giving this because of a just professional growth for him. He is, become, I think, like no one would have expected this because with all these players, I think with comeback player of the year, we typically give it to the individual regardless of the team record. The fact that Geno Smith has the Seattle Seahawks in the top of the division right now, who would have thought? Like, who would have thought? Because let's be real here. That Seahawks defense, for all we're like saying about Tariq Woolen playing great and maybe like 1 or 2 other guys that we haven't mentioned yet, that Seahawks defense hasn't been the most impressive this season. They gave up, God, how many points did they give up to Detroit? Like, they've had good games, yes, but they are not an elite defense. Like, they've come up with plays, but Geno Smith has had a drive or 2. He's had a play or 2. Like, if he plays like most would have expected him to play, which is essentially the rest of his career, they wouldn't be in this spot. He has elevated himself for this locker room, and he has worked very well with Pete Carroll. And look what happens when you have a good quarterback there with Pete Carroll. You have harmony in the locker room. It doesn't happen with everyone, to say the least. And yes, I'm also giving this, in fact, despite Russell Wilson as well. That's 1,000% it as well. But Geno Smith, future Seahawks Ring of Honor, comeback player of the year. Is there more awards to come in the future? We will see for that. Moving on from that. I will go first here to kind of break the trend. Coach of the year. Again, another award. What is your criteria for yourself personally? Are you just going to give your vote for first place to the best team in either conference or best team in the league overall? The team that surprised you the most, a coach that you feel, just deserves it out of whatever your criteria is. Again, this is another one of those similar to comeback player of the year where there's no set criteria. It's just on who do you want to select. And I had a tough time here. I have a number of names written down that I think all 3 of us are probably at least going to mention when it comes to.
You're going to say Vrabel, Jerry?
No, how did you know that Mike Tomlin's my coach of the year this year? No, not at all. Give me – look, this guy, if he can get Kirk Cousins to a Super Bowl, he might ultimately prove me wrong as well. Give me Kevin O'Connell as coach of the year. because I think we said it on this podcast, but I said it a number of times that what Kevin O'Connell could do is that he could take a team that already has the offensive weapons, and if he can get them to perform a step above what we already expect of them, then that would be the goal. And he has. Kirk Cousins, for all we will say, for all the jokes we will make about the fact that as long as the sun is up and if it's a 1 o'clock game, that he might be a top 5 quarterback, which is still the truth, they're performing really well this season. Like Justin Jefferson is phenomenal. Dalvin Cook is underrated. Mike Tannenbaum can say whatever he wants. Dalvin Cook is a top 5 running back in this league. And this offense has just really performed to a level that I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have expected. I say wouldn't have expected in terms of the kinds of games they've had, the shootouts they've had, utterly dominating the Green Bay Packers in week 1. This comeback against the Buffalo Bills. Like, the Vikings are great. They're tied for the top of the NFC, if I'm not mistaken, right now. And I wouldn't have had these expectations of them coming into this year because I had questions about that defense. And while he's an offensive guy, and maybe he's just delegating it to his defensive coordinators mainly, that defense has performed in certain instances when even I least expected. So Kevin O'Connell is my coach of the year. Justin, who's your coach of the year?
I think I have to give it to Sirianni, man. I mean, as good as I thought the Eagles were going to be this year, I don't think anyone had them starting 8-0. So far, they've arguably been the best team in football. I mean, they're tied at the bottom for turnovers given up. They're among the top 3 teams in turnovers forced. They're running the ball like crazy. Jalen Hurts is all of a sudden an MVP candidate, at least within the first 8 games. And it looks like they could beat any team in football, except for maybe the Commanders. So, yeah, they're a really good team this year. They're not making a ton of mistakes, which was also a killer for them last year. And, you gotta have, when you're talking about the top of the NFL, you're gonna have to put the Eagles players and coaches in there. So I'm gonna give it to Sirianni.
Fair. Rick?
It's Ron Rivera, obviously. I'm kidding. I think so. There's a lot of different ways you could go with this. You could say Brian Dable because of the way that the Giants have been playing really, really well. You could also say Robert Saleh too because the Jets have bought him too. But I think the fact that in the last 3 awards we talked about a Seattle Seahawk, you have to talk about Pete Carroll, Woolen, Gino, and Kenneth Walker. You have to talk about Pete Carroll because you talked about the Vikings having expectations. The Seahawks had none coming in. I think we all thought that the Seahawks were going to be as bad as they were. And they've outperformed that. And a lot of that has to do with Pete Carroll, I think. I mean, the fact that now he's got the team buying in when maybe Russell Wilson was the problem all along. I think, not maybe, definitely Russell Wilson was the problem all along. I think now you have to really give Pete Carroll some of that love. And he's still a good coach. I mean, the fact that they are atop their division in week 11 says something to me. If they can keep this trend up and Seattle goes to the playoffs as the NFC West champion, I think serious consideration has to be given to Pete Carroll as well for this award. No question in my mind.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I was talking about getting fired at the end of the year.
Yeah, we are.
I was like, the Seahawks.
I said 1-15 or 1.
You guys asked me what their record were going to be. I'm like, they might play football. Like I was very, after all the things I got right, I was very off about the Seahawks. I thought give them credit. Credit is due.
I was in a similar path. I didn't think fired. I thought he would have retired.
I did not see it.
I thought,
that's what I figured. I figured it'd be like a mutual parting of the, but like he was not really allowed back. Like Coughlin kind of like he's out.
Yeah,
he's out.
Yeah, no,
we'll make it mutual, but he's out.
Clearly
I was wrong.
Yeah, clearly everyone was wrong.
Seahawks.
Everyone was wrong about Seattle. The Pacific Northwest,
well-run franchise.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Surprising.
And it didn't look that way for a while. So
maybe John Snyder, GM of the year. Who knows?
Hey, not one of the awards we're discussing here.
No, I was going to say, is that one we're doing?
No. All right. 3 awards left. Let's go. I think this one is probably going to be the most obvious of the 3 remaining ones. Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, I'll start and I'll make it simple. Like, I'm giving it to Tyreek Hill. If he surpasses 2,000 receiving yards, I'm giving it to Tyreek Hill. No questions asked. Like, it's not even close for me. If he'll be the first wide receiver to surpass 2,000. A lot of guys have come close. Megatron came close. Cooper Kupp came close. Tyreek Hill is on pace to surpass 2,000 receiving yards. And if he does it, I'm not even looking in any other player's direction. I'm giving it to Tyreek Hill at this point. So, Rick, you clearly disagree.
But is it that simple? Because Justin Jefferson's right behind him.
If they both do it, fine. But if one gets 2,000 and one gets 1,900, I'm giving it to the guy who surpassed the 2,000.
Can I ask which one has the bye? Has already had their bye? Oh, that's right. Justin Jefferson has one less game than Tyreek Hill as well.
Yeah.
Okay, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just as good as Tyreek Hill has been. I think nobody has changed the offensive game this season like Justin Jefferson has. We're still talking about, and we'll still be talking about that highlight reel catch even after the Super Bowl goes on.
That's fair, but Tyreek Hill, like, he has turned Tua into, like, a lot of people putting him way higher. He turned the conversation from people thinking this could be Tua's only year to prove himself a starter to everyone wants Tua to be the franchise quarterback this year.
But you could say the same thing about Kirk Cousins, though.
No, I would still replace Kirk Cousins even without, I would still replace Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. He has turned it to where people are going to buy in to what they're doing in Miami. This is his stat line this season. These are some of his best games. 190 yards against Baltimore, 160 yards against Cincinnati when Tua got hurt, 177 yards against Minnesota without Tua in the lineup, 188 yards against Detroit, 143 yards against the Chicago Bears. That's the offensive player of the year. I know Justin Jefferson's been great, but that's the offensive player of the year to me.
And Justin Jefferson had 184 against Green Bay with 2 scores, 193 against Buffalo with 1 score. He's got 1,060. He's at 69 catches. He's going to pass 100, maybe pass 120 catches this year, I think. Look, either one's a good choice, but you're not gonna win me over with Tyreek Hill. If you said Nick Chubb, maybe I'd agree with you, but you're not gonna win me over with Tyreek Hill. The way Justin Jefferson's been playing, Justin Jefferson's my guy.
Why Nick Chubb? Just asking that.
Well, because I feel like too, offensive player of the year, he's third in rushing yards to Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, I think, right now. But at the same time, too, the way that Nick Chubb runs the ball is just beastly.
Fair.
And so, he'll get some votes too, but I think it's between the two receivers.
Nick Chubb was also the one with 11 touchdowns.
Yeah. So
is that your pick, Justin? It's your turn now.
Justin, side with me. I'm going with the guy with your name. Come on now. Brownie points.
Yeah, listen. I was actually leaning towards Nick Chubb. I love Justin Jefferson. I think he's had a great year. Unfortunately, the touchdown numbers aren't really there for him. And it's the same with Tyreek, really. They both only have 4 receiving touchdowns.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Yeah. It's very Julio Jones. So, yeah, I would say that I'd probably have to go with Nick Chubb. I mean, he's having an all-around fantastic year. He's not that receiving running back that you think of a lot of times, at least not this year. But to have 11 touchdowns and just under 1,000 yards through 10 games, have they had their bye yet?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, they did. They had their bye week 9. So through 9 games, he's averaging over 100 yards and more than a touchdown a game. Yeah, it's hard to lose. It's hard to win against teams that have players that can do that. Now, unfortunately for him, he is on the Browns. But if he keeps this pace, there's no reason why he shouldn't be the offensive player of the year.
Right. I don't disagree. I think my only question with Nick Chubb, and this has nothing to do with him in terms of how he's going to play, how much will the offense change with Stefanski when Watson's back in the lineup is the only question I have. That's the only question I have. I'm not trying to take away from Nick Chubb for that. I'm just wondering how will they impact his chances to end off the season?
Look, I think a lot of their issues have been on defense, to be completely honest. I mean, Jacoby Brissett has that offense functioning fairly well, and he's not like a top quarterback, but he's played well enough that he was worth the money that they gave him and everything they gave up to get him. They still have Amari Cooper that's doing well. You got to think that Nick Chubb is going to be in position to score more with Deshaun Watson there. He could end up with, 5, 6, even up to 10 more red zone carries, maybe. Let's not forget, if they're actually up a couple scores, which is rare in Cleveland games this year, that he's going to have all of those garbage time carries. His stats could explode with the addition of Deshaun Watson there. Now, again, Deshaun Watson hasn't played in 2 years. I don't know what he's going to be. It could obviously go a lot worse because they could be down because he's not playing well and he gets less carries. It can go either way. But you got to think, if Deshaun Watson is any semblance of what he was in Houston, Nick Chubb might have better stats in the second half than he did in the first.
Fair possibility. Yeah. That was just something that I'm keeping in mind, but very fair possibility it could end up. And I mean, you mentioned Houston. What's Deshaun Watson's first game back? The NFL. You scumbags, you for your money. Anyways,
yep.
That's offensive player of the year. Defensive player of the year. I feel like if this was 4 weeks into the season, I think it would be unanimous who the defensive player of the year is. And maybe it still is to this point. Who knows? Defensive player of the year. It's been dominated by pass rushers and sack guys the last couple of years, mainly Aaron Donald and TJ Watt. Will that still be the case this year, or is someone else taking that crown? Sauce Gardner, defensive player of the year. I'm just kidding, of course. Not this season, maybe a future year. Rick, I will throw it to you first. Who is your defensive player of the year for 2022?
I mean, I looked at everybody who's leading both tackles, sacks, and interceptions, and for me, I think it ends here. I think Gardner Johnson from the Eagles has been an absolute revelation for their secondary, and I was a guy that they added very, very quickly into the season, and he's already turned around and become one of the premier corners not named Sauce Gardner in the NFL. I mean, you could also give love to Jordan Brooks from Seattle. He's leading the league in tackles, which again surprised the Seattle guys up there. But for me, I think just the way that CJ Gardner-Johnson's played has just been phenomenal for that Philadelphia defense, and really kind of been a cornerstone for them, at least in that secondary, to kind of hold them together, because they've had some tough games, but they've kind of held firm on the defensive side towards the end. So it's not a trendy pick because obviously, like you said, it's mostly sack guys and pass rushers, but I think you got to give some of the secondary guys that are defending the pass in this passing league. And so I'll give it to Gardner Johnson.
I'm with you. To this day, I think Darrell Revis should have a defense player of the year on his resume. Just my opinion. Justin, your defense player of the year.
I got a couple guys in mind, and I was cliche. I went. It's about the pass rush to me. It just changes the game, and if that's the case, you got to give a nod, I guess, to Matt Judon, who's got 11.5 sacks this year, is leading the league in sacks by a full 2 sacks. But at the same time, you got to look at a guy like Micah Parsons, who affects the game at every single level. He's just been so good. To think that he could have been in New York at some point. And I mean, obviously, I knew the Jets weren't going to pick him that year. They had other issues that they had to take, but like, that dude is good, man. So I think I'm going to have to give it to Parsons. I mean, he really is a defensive player like we haven't seen in a long time. He's got 8 sacks this year. He's got 43 combined tackles. He's all over the field. You hear his name. You watch a Cowboys game, you hear his name all day long. It's almost a surprise when you don't hear his name on a play. So I'm going to give it to Micah Parsons.
Fair. Very fair right there with him. Like I said, when I said first 4 weeks of the season, who would have been, I think everyone would have said Micah Parsons. I think this show would have swept Micah Parsons in the first 4 weeks. He's the first month of the season. It looked like he was on a warpath, and he's still a very good player, but it's kind of slowed down to an extent from that hot start he had to the season.
You know, it's funny. You said first 4 weeks, and I was not thinking Micah Parsons. I was actually thinking of Rashawn Gary.
Yeah, me too.
Fair. Very fair. Oh, poor Rashawn Gary.
Shame he got hurt. Yeah.
If only it wasn't just cheap ass turf on there. Anyways, my defensive player of the year. Whew. I'm gonna be a little controversial here. My defensive player of the year. Because this guy, he's a little bit down in the sack category. He still has 8 sacks. He's still doing good. But I think his impact to this team, to say the very least, has been felt. I think the locker room has bought in with him. He's nearly surpassed the sack total from last season with less games played. And we talked about this team a lot this episode. And we're talking about the fact that it's mainly the offense that has made some missteps recently. Not so much the defense, boys, because in some of these games, the defense has done their job. And I'm willing to give an old dog the credit for learning new tricks. And I'm willing to give this man the last award he needs on his resume to complete it all. I'm giving my Defensive Player of the Year award to Von Miller.
I can shoot so many bullets in that pick.
Oh, I'm sure you can. I'm not doubting it.
You want to shoot Von Miller, Rick?
Well, no. And the selection of Von Miller as the Defensive Player of the Year, Justin. Let me clarify my English there.
Thank you.
Von Miller has.
I was going to say we don't hate anyone on this show.
Well, Trent Baalke, but Von Miller has 17 less tackles than Matt Judon does.
That's fair.
I was comparing that, and 3.5 less sacks. He's tied with Parsons in in sacks at 8, and also Jerry Hughes. So why no love for Jerry Hughes? Why do you hate the Texans? I think we all know why.
Hey, I've praised Houston actually this season.
I know we have. Yeah, I mean, look, if he turns it on towards the end of the year, I think absolutely,
which he might.
He might very well do that. But can he catch up to Judon, and can he catch up to Nick Bosa, who's second in 9.5 sacks? We'll see. I mean,
Nick Bosa was my pick, but I'm like, you know what?
Let's get some chaos in here.
Let me go with the old man.
Okay, fair.
I mean, hey, a guy who's won 2 Super Bowl MVP, all Pro Bowls, all pros, 100+ sacks.
Yep.
This will be the final piece to his career, and if he gets a 3rd Super Bowl at some point as well.
Yep.
We're talking about literally like top 5 greatest defensive player if he continues the accolades. Probably won't, but hey, I wanted to. All right, MVP. This is an interesting one. I know I've talked about the other awards and its different criteria. I would say, guys, I think this is the first MVP award we've had in a couple years to memory that I don't think there's a true definitive favorite this year, or at least not even a top 2, top 3. I think there are so many different guys in this league that if you just crunch numbers, if you talk about how they've played, I think you could give a lot of different players MVP to this point of the season. Because I think, Rodgers has won back-to-back years. Obviously, 2 years ago, it was obvious it was going to be him. Last year was between him and Brady at the end of the year. It kind of became clear. When Mahomes won the MVP, of course, we knew he was going to win it. When Lamar Jackson, his MVP season, we knew he was going to win it. There's just some guys that, like, when they have those seasons, yes, we give credit to other guys, but we know who's going to win the MVP. I don't think there is one definitive. Like, I think whoever all 3 of us pick right here, I think there is an argument for that player. So that being said, who will win the MVP award in your mind, Justin, for 2022?
Jerg, let me tell you why that is incorrect, what you just said. Do you know who's leading the league in passing?
Well, hold on. Yards,
Mahomes?
Touchdowns, or completion.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's 3 different categories.
Who's leading the league in all 3?
Patrick Mahomes?
Mahomes isn't leading completion percentage. It's Brian Hoyer.
Okay, but
stop.
Who's leading the league in completions?
Brady, actually, 282.
Yeah, I know. He's 3rd. Still, he's number 1 in touchdown and passing touchdowns. He's number 1 in passing yards. He's 3rd in completions. He's a top guy who's started as of the guys that have started every week of the season. He's among the top 10 in completion percentage. He's got 7 picks. His passer rating for the season is a 106.
A take so hot that his internet gave up on him.
What happened?
Yeah, but he's 7th in completion percentage, and somebody who's going to get some votes is number 1.
Geno Smith.
I didn't say my vote. I said some votes.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, Mahomes has got to be the top guy for MVP. His team is in the best position to win at this point. He's had the best season statistically. He's played lights out. I mean, look, not every guy is infallible, but if there's a favorite, it's, in my mind, there's no one really having as good a year as Patrick Mahomes.
Fair. Do remember, Rick, Justin's, I think his take in the preseason was the fact that there would be a repeat MVP winner this season. Like, someone would win the award for at least the 2nd time in their career. So
that's true, but I had someone else.
Fair, but it still counts to an extent. You're half right. All right.
Listen, if Lamar could pick it back up from what he was doing in the beginning, he's still in. I think he's still very well within the race. His team is playing pretty well. They're winning games. They're losing more on defense, and he may not have the stats, but he's got a little extra with those 700 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. That certainly helps his case.
True. All right, Rick, your MVP. Obviously, PJ Walker does not qualify for this because, let's be real here, he's probably not going to win it.
Can we give it to Justin Tucker and call it a day?
I would gladly do that.
Okay. So
wait, how'd you know that's my MVP?
I know, right? I'm gonna throw some controversy into this because that's what I do. I like to throw a stick of dynamite and walk away from it. If we saw anything last year with the voting, the fact that Cooper Kupp got a vote means that there's a trend going on that wide receivers are getting more consideration and love. And I think if he continues his run, and if he does what Jurg says that he can do, and if he becomes the first wide receiver to cross 2,000 yards, Tyreek Hill will win the MVP. Look, Cooper Kupp won the Triple Crown. I get it. But if Tyreek Hill does something that no one has ever done, then there's no question in my mind that he has made that Miami offense the most valuable offense in the league. I get that the quarterback is where everything goes, and you want to give the quarterback some love, but let's be real here. You take Pat Mahomes off of Kansas City, fine. You take Tyreek Hill out of Miami, who are they? They are a shell of what they could be. I know they still have Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. They're still a shell of what they could be. I know it's a heavy quarterback award. I understand that, but it's time to buck some trends. It's time to do some things that are different. Give it to Tyreek Hill. That's why he wasn't my offensive player of the year, because I had bigger aspirations for him. And yes, Geno Smith will get some love and nods, but not from me.
My question to you is, if Tyreek Hill gets MVP consideration, you're not turning to Tua?
But they didn't have Tua for a game, and Tyreek Hill was still a beast without him.
But I'm not saying not. Tyreek Hill is a top player in this league for sure. He's having a fantastic year, career year for him. Look at the rest of that offense. You got to give Tua some credit for what Tyreek is accomplishing. And then on top of that, he's got Jalen Waddle as a guy who's going to have 1,500 yards, and it's not inconceivable for him to have double-digit touchdowns at this point.
I agree, but they also had Waddle last year without Tyreek Hill, and the difference is night and day with Tyreek Hill.
Waddle missed how many games last year?
A number.
He didn't even play the first 6 games, I don't believe.
Yeah. Well, still, the difference is night and day. If it was just Waddle there, they would be considerably less of an offense.
Listen, of course, I'm not disagreeing.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not disagreeing that Waddle is different this year than he was last year. All I'm saying is, there's the reason that a receiver has never won an NFL MVP is because he gets all of his stats from someone else. It's a quarterback award at this point. If you're giving it to the receiver, unless he's the Triple Crown and Tua missed 6 games and he still had the same stats, I don't know if you can give it to a guy like Tyreek Hill. And not saying he doesn't deserve it. That's the issue. I'm not saying that your pick is invalid. I'm just saying if it's going to be a receiver, it's probably just really going to be the quarterback.
Listen, they gave it to Mark Mosley one year. He was a kicker. Anything is possible. They gave it to LT and Thurman Thomas and Terrell Davis and Marshall Faulk. It's about damn time a wide receiver breaks through. It's about damn time a wide receiver breaks through and gets MVP.
I don't disagree. I'm not disagreeing with you. And if there's a wide receiver up for it, I would say it's either him or Jefferson, for sure. Especially Tyreek Hill leads in completions, and touchdowns are one of those stats that can explode. Tyreek Hill could have 2 games with 3 touchdowns coming down the stretch, and we wouldn't be surprised. And all of a sudden, he leads the league in touchdowns as well. All I'm saying is it going to go? If he's the guy, it might just go to Tua, dude.
May I segue?
Well, something there, Justin. I have to tell you this. You're actually wrong in some capacity, because Jerry Rice is the 2-time Sporting News Most Valuable Player of the Year. So a wide receiver did win MVP. Sure, it wasn't the NFL, but it was Sporting News.
Yeah,
There's a precedent.
You're right.
Come on, Jerry Rice.
I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize to Sporting News and Jerry Rice.
And I apologize to Belgium for nothing. Jerk's internet broke. Typical.
No, I'm still here. I'm just waiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all the thunder was stolen for my selections. So thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
With me picking Tyreek Hill to be Offensive Player of the Year, that links to my MVP vote, because I 1,000% think that the voters are going to give this award to the quarterback. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I give you your 2022 MVP, who's currently leading in quarterback rating, who's currently leading in passer rating, and every single game he has completed this season from start to finish. New England, W. Baltimore, W. Buffalo, W. Cincinnati, he didn't finish the game. Pittsburgh, W. Detroit, W. Chicago, W. Cleveland, W. 7-0, start to finish this season. Your 2022 MVP, Tua Tagovailoa. Because I 1,000% expect them to give this award to a quarterback, even with the season Tyreek Hill is having. Even with the season that Hill is having. And this I'm not saying Tua doesn't deserve any consideration. What I am saying is that even with the season Tyreek Hill has had, even if he breaks 2K, I'm expecting the NFL media to give it to Tua, in part because, but look at what he had to come back from this season with a concussion, with the multiple concussions that we know are multiple concussions. Like, I'm 1,000% expecting the NFL media to give it to him. So my MVP ballot goes number 1, Tua, number 2, Geno Smith, and number 3, Tyreek Hill. That is how my MVP.
I knew there was a hook at some point for Geno at some point.
Of course. Come on now. Come on. All right, boys. We are going to move on to our pick challenge real quick. But before we do that, we have one last thing to do, gentlemen. Who is your biggest disappointment for the 2022 season? We're going to do that real quick as well to this point so far. And I will give first crack at that. Who did I give MVP pick to first? Justin. Rick, you get first pick on this one. Who's been your most disappointing team for 2022?
Oh, disappointing team. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, player. My bad. Biggest
disappointment. Just disappointment in general.
Team. My bad. Yeah.
Trent Baalke. You knew exactly what you were doing when you drafted Travon Walker, and it hasn't worked out for you. Then again, Trent Baalke, you're also a disappointment regardless. I hate this has become a rant, but it's become a rant. So, disappointment for me, Trent Baalke. Absolutely. If I have to go with a team, the Packers. The Packers they've drafted poorly. They've led with the wrong guy. They have ridden the wrong horse with nobody around him. The Packers are just toiling in misery, and I don't think it's going to get any better for them. So I think it has to be Green Bay for me.
For me, it's got to be the Raiders. I mean, I was gung-ho on that team. They made so many moves. They made so many, electrifying signings and trades, and I liked their draft, and oh my God, they are so bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the Raiders as a team, maybe it's Josh McDaniels, but they have just been a flaming pile of garbage this season. It has not been fun to watch. I mean, they played what are the Saints now? They're 3-6, 3-7,
3-6, I believe. 3-7. You're right, 3-7.
They didn't cross midfield against the Saints until the 2-minute warning of the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
I mean, Josh Jacobs is having a career year. I think he's almost matched his yards total from last year, and I think he passed his touchdown total. They traded for Devontae Adams, who again is having a fantastic year, and they can't seem to win a game.
Right.
I don't understand what's happening with that team, but disappointment doesn't even begin to describe how I feel about that Raiders team.
Well, you know what the biggest disappointment for me is in all of this? I mean, Devontae Adams aside, from a personal level, the biggest disappointment between the two of us are the two teams that I picked to go to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, that's a significant disappointment in itself. But you're right. If you're an offense that has Devontae Adams or an offense that had Devontae Adams, which both teams we talked about did and currently do, you have to know how to do something with it.
Rick, are you trying to blame Devontae Adams for both of these teams being bad?
No. What I'm saying is Devontae Adams is like, to use Jurg's metaphor, if you've got the battle plans to win a battle for the Mongol army, and you just decide to sit there on the battle plans and do nothing for 2 weeks, and then the defense has fortified themselves, and therefore, hey.
Say hello to Bruno, everybody. Isn't he adorable?
No.
Hey.
Not my dog. I had a very last-second visit here, so this is one of my visitors here.
Hey.
Say hi to everyone, Bruno.
Hey, Bruno.
Continue, boys.
Yeah. So it literally is, if you have Devontae Adams, you have to know how to use him and use him properly on a consistent level and basis. And I mean, the Packers, he was their only weapon, so they basically got him for everything that he was worth. The Raiders haven't done anything. They used him for one half, which goes back to me saying that Josh McDaniels is probably, I know the Raiders are money poor, but you have to think that the McDaniels is going to have to be gone at some point. Like, it's just, I know, but it's bad. It is so bad the way that they've run that team in the past 4 or 5 years. It's awful.
Let me just say, if I had to pick a second disappointment, I think it would be Aaron Rodgers, because as bad as the
Yeah.
Packers have played, they've had chances to win certain games. If you watch that Thursday night game, he was missing guys that were running free. They were wide open. Sammy Watkins was wide open. Alan Lazard on 4th down was wide open, and he just misses.
Well, the only reason why I'm not going to say Aaron Rodgers the individual is because this is expected. Last week when we were talking about,
I don't ever expect Aaron Rodgers to miss those throws.
No. What I'm saying is that what I'm saying is expected is that last week when we talked about the Packers and Matt LaFleur and about being on the coaching hot seat, Aaron Rodgers is going to do what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. He's in the business for himself. Like if it was Team Aaron Rodgers, he would win the Super Bowl every year because no one else would play him because he's just in it for himself. Like that's basically what it is. And the Packers, they decided to ride with him, and look where it's gotten them. Jordan Love is not ready to be a quarterback in the NFL. He's not.
I don't know if he ever will be.
He won't be. And who's their third string? Danny Etling on the practice squad. They have nobody. They've got nobody.
We have a lot of great quarterback names in today's episode, guys.
Yeah, we did. we really did.
Or just names in general, even going back as far as Dontari Poe to start everything off. All right. My biggest disappointment, I mean, you guys may have said it. I apologize. I have to do some stuff real quick. Russell Wilson, like, come on now. I'm sure you guys have already said his name.
No, we didn't, actually. We left it all for you.
So
you knew it was coming.
Thank you, boys. Christmas came early. Yeah, Russell Wilson's the biggest disappointment by like a million country miles, to say the very least. He has underperformed on every single which level that you possibly could. Nathaniel Hackett is a stooge of a coach. He's probably going to get fired this season. And yeah, Russell Wilson, he was supposed to, simply put, this Denver Broncos team that was a quarterback away last season, from Teddy Bridgewater and shooter sleeve Drew Lock to Russell Wilson, a guy who's won a Super Bowl, all that. And there's a reason why I specified Geno Smith in my top 3, because wouldn't it just be fantastic if Russell Wilson, who has never secured a top 3 MVP vote in his career, in year 1 without him, Geno Smith could somehow get it? Wouldn't that be fantastic? That is the kind of chaos that I am here for. That is the kind of chaos that the show lives for, including all kinds of animals. All right, moving on, because we kind of have to get to a point where we're wrapping this up, boys. Pick challenge, real quick. This is the way that the pick challenge goes, everybody. By the way, we finished our award predictions right there, our midseason awards. SAOC pick challenge, you guys know how this goes. 4-1, most confident to least confident. We go in the deciding order based off of who's currently last place. And if you want to pick a tie, Rick, you got to use it on your 4-point pick. And you must use at least one upset pick. Rick, you begin the proceedings. What?
Hey, regardless of who picked last week, I didn't pick the tie. Justin didn't pick the win. There you go.
Very fair point. Anyways, Rick, you are going to pick first. But before you pick first, please update us on the standings and then take us from there.
Jurg has retaken the lead in the pick standings at 61 points.
Sweet.
Justin is second at 60, so it's a two-way battle right now. The Deer has 40 because he won the game and got the 9-point multiplier. And then the Giants saved me last week from a 0 week, which would have been disastrous. I am at 33 to Sandoval's 40. So I am 7 points behind the Deer. I picked first. I teased it. And here's my thought was either, do I pick the team that could be in the mood for a letdown after a big Monday night victory, or the team that needs to step up after losing their first game of the season? I went with the latter. So my 4-point pick is Philadelphia beating Indianapolis. I have the Eagles rebounding after that loss. They've added Linval Joseph. They added Ndamukong Suh. They've gotten stronger on the running game. And Jonathan Taylor, the Colts rushing offense, only averaged about 97 yards a game. I think it's going to be a rough day for the Colts. Jeff Saturday is going to know what it feels like to lose, which is unfortunate for him. He's a good guy, but I go with Philadelphia over Indianapolis in this one.
He was probably going to learn that feeling very quickly here, in all fairness. Yeah. Justin, it's been a while since you've picked in the middle here, and it's been a while since I picked last, so I'm trying to get used to it. Justin, you go.
Actually, I don't think I've ever picked in the middle. I think I was only in last place and then first place.
That's true.
I believe is my first mid-round pick.
Welcome to the second round. Welcome to the middle.
I don't know how I like it, guys.
He likes the back-to-back picks.
Don't pick against the Commanders.
Yeah, very fair.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of success picking against the Commanders so far this year, so I'll take
it again.
No,
I mean, it would be an upset.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm getting a phone call. Hello?
Oh my God! I know.
Props.
Okay. This is the wake-up call that Buffalo needed. I'm going to take Buffalo in the Dome against the gets the Browns.
You with the props, with the receipts first, and then the phone calls. And then we gave you the power over the buzzer. Like Jesus.
Right. All right. Well, I thought this game wasn't going to be there for me, so thank you, boys. I'll take Baltimore over Carolina very easily. I know it's a big spread. I know it's probably going to be closer than that, but I don't think the Panthers are beating the Ravens, to say the very least, so make that my 4-point pick. And my 3-point pick, which will also be my upset, because once again, ladies and gentlemen, we go via the lines that ESPN has, which are given to them by Justin.
Caesar Sportsbook.
Thank you very much. For my upset pick this week, because the Falcons are favored, give me the Chicago Bears. I think Justin Fields is going to run all over that Falcons defense, to say the very least, and they'll win like 20-17 or something like that. It's going to be an ugly game. So those are my picks: Ravens and Bears. I'm going AFC and NFC North so far. Justin,
that's solid. I think I'm gonna go upset pick as well. I'm torn between two. One of them I really like, but it's a tough game because it's two very good teams. And then there's one that I don't like as much, but I think is more likely that they win because it's two very bad teams. So screw it. Let's ride the hand that hasn't played in a week or two, and I'm gonna go with Matthew Stafford and the Rams beating the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans.
I didn't even realize that was an upset. Oh, it is. Yeah, wow.
It is.
1.5.
That's a good one. Right. Well, is Stafford playing?
Stafford has played.
Stafford is playing, yes.
He's expected to play.
Making sure. Okay. Rick, back-to-back picks for you.
Now that it's here, 3 Washington over Houston, please. Thank you very much. Go Commanders.
I knew that wasn't coming back to me.
I mean, I know Chase Young is not active, but let's be real here. If this Washington team did a great job stopping the run, I don't see Dameon Pierce doing a whole heck of a lot against them this week. And Davis Mills inspires no confidence in me. So give me Taylor Heineke once again to keep this train rolling. Get the Commanders over 500. Let's have some fun. See what happens. 2 points. I have to go upset here, and fortunately for me, I have a ton of upsets to pick from. And somehow this is an upset. I don't know why it's an upset. Why an 8-1 team is an underdog
at home
against the team that just collapsed in the second half against the Green Bay Packers. I don't know why. This is the second week in a row that the Vikings are an underdog for no real reason, I think. And we saw how well it worked last week. You're welcome, Jerg. I told you to pick that game. So I'm taking the initiative this one. I'm taking Minnesota as a slight underdog, on a weird upset over Dallas.
I would like to say, for the record, on video, I was considering picking the Packers as an upset pick, and I was right with the Cowboys.
Sure you were. Okay.
I was. I literally said it on the show.
Yep. Okay.
Schmuck.
Well, that was my other upset pick that I was looking at. So now I have to, I think, go with what I think should be the most decisive game left. I know that they lost week 1. It was an overtime game that they should have won. And I know Jerg apparently really wanted to pick this game. So I'm going to make sure he cannot pick this game. And I'm going to pick the Cincinnati Bengals over the Steelers. I was going to make the joke that I was going the other way around. I couldn't even bring myself to be like, the Steelers are going to win that game. I don't think so. I think it's going to go to the Bengals. It's a game that they actually very much need at this point in the season to really help them with their wild card aspirations at this point, because they're going to have to do a lot to catch the Ravens.
Very true.
Yeah.
All right. The 49ers have done me relatively well this season, so give me them for my 2-point pick on Monday Night Football. I think it was an aberration of victory for the Cardinals last week, and I don't think it's continuing. I'm taking San Fran against them. And my 1-point pick, oh, sweet mother of God. So many picks I don't like here. So, well, there are 1 or 2 that I kind of like, but you know what? I know this would be wholly ironic. You know what? I'm going to use this pick because it's a 1-point game. This is my martyr pick. This is a game to prove if I was right or wrong just now. So my 1-point pick will be the Denver Broncos beating the Las Vegas Raiders. Put as much pressure possible on Mark Davis to fire Josh McDaniels right now. Let's see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did not think you were going that way. Honestly.
I didn't think I was going that way either.
After Derek Carr and Devontae Adams just came out and praised the fact that Mark Davis came out and praised of Josh McDaniels, you're riding with Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett in that game.
Yeah, I'm not proud of it.
You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. Justin.
I forget. Somebody picked Giants Lions?
No.
I'm going to go with the Giants.
Okay. All right.
Potential upset pick right there. Like, I think it would have been an interesting upset pick.
No, Giants are favored.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If I would have picked the Lions, it would have been a potential.
Yeah. So my choices then become oh boy. All right. Give me the Jets at 1. Give me the Jets at 1 point.
See, I was so torn on that game, man. I was really torn because I think there is a chance, like, it could go either way. Like, yes, the Jets could win, but the Patriots, like, they've solved Zach Wilson so many times already.
I'm like thinking to myself, like, all right, if I pick the Patriots, I know the Jets will win because then I'll be rooting for the Patriots. But then also, if I pick the Patriots and the Patriots win, I'll jump out a window. So I didn't want to do that either.
Before Thanksgiving? Really? You want to do that?
So then I thought, let me just stick with my my rule and don't bet on the Jets.
Well, my rule for picking this game was that I looked at the games that were left, knowing that there's an upset still on the table that has to be taken, which means that Sandoval's picking the Chargers over the Chiefs.
Oh, I forgot that thing existed.
So therefore, that's a game that probably won't work in his favor, and therefore I can at least move forward because after the dirty, filthy bets that we've talked about in our group chat, I cannot finish 15 points behind this damn deer. I just can't do it.
Yes.
The best part about this is the best part about the whole thing is that Rick actually makes the deer picks.
And it is so weird how it is so weird.
I do not want the deer to win. And like sometimes I'm like, all right, he's definitely picking against the interest of that stupid puppet. And it doesn't work. It has not worked out for him.
I can't help that the games that I pick lose and the games that I pick for the deer win.
You
like,
can.
It's just,
you
no,
can. You're making the picks.
I literally cannot
you have
because
4 shots at all of those games.
I picked from. Okay.
You have 4 shots to take any one of those games you just put there.
Okay, hold on. Remember the week that I had 0? Remember the week that I had 0 games?
Which one? That's happened twice.
Shut up, Jared. Remember the week that I had 0? I picked Tampa over Pittsburgh. That was a game that should have been an easy win. That was a loss. I picked Kansas City over Buffalo. Fine, whatever. I picked Baltimore over the Giants. That was a loss somehow. And then I picked New Orleans over Cincinnati. That was an upset. Whatever, fine. 1-point game, no big deal. That game was Seattle over Arizona. I didn't believe in Geno Smith back then. No one did. So come on. Like, how is that? How is this on me here?
Week? What did you pick last week?
For what?
All of them. Let's say all the picks last week.
Okay. Last week I did Seattle over Tampa as my 4-point upset.
Yep.
I did Dallas over Green Bay.
Yep.
Which, come on, let's be honest here.
Should have flipped that.
I picked the Giants over Houston, which worked in my favor. And then I went upset with Denver over Tennessee, and that was a closer game than we all thought it was going to be. And then the game that was left was
Denver
Colt McCoy.
Tennessee? You picked Denver to win a game?
It was a 1-point pick. 1 point. That was it. Fine. Arizona had Colt McCoy, and the Rams had John Wolford. So either way, somebody was going to lose that game, and we didn't know who wasn't starting until Sunday afternoon. So, I mean, you know.
You wanted to play multipliers. You wanted to listen.
I don't mind. It's chaotic entertainment, but I'm just saying, like, if you there's logical reasoning behind every pick that I'm making for myself
it's
and
not
for the
just
damn
entertainment
deer.
now, Rick. Your well-being is at stake.
Can we just point the fact out? If you combine Rick's picks between himself and the deer puppet, he'd be whooping our asses, but he's not.
Hey, that's 2 extra picks a week at least.
All that to be said, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Sandoval's wheel spin. He's got 1 point. Let's see what the multiplier gives him.
And you know what? In all the arguing and fighting that I did with Justin, he didn't go over the 10x plus 1 like he usually does because, you know,
he
hates algebra.
Right. It's just 11.
Oh.
I didn't see it. I was looking at the numbers on the
side.
Oh,
no.
1. Just barely 1. Just barely a 1-pointer. So that's fine.
That was close.
Well, listen. At some point, if it got that far, he'd be right up there against the two of you, and then I would just laugh my way to the bank. Like I don't care at that point. Like I want him to beat you guys.
We need to come up with a bet if Sandoval somehow does beat all three of us.
You laugh your way to the bank to take out money to buy a Cole Strange jersey?
Well, I just asked for that for Christmas from somebody, so there you go.
No, you have to buy that for yourself. There are rules here.
No, that was never the rule. Secret Santa
for the standings.
Listen, I guess if he wants to sacrifice a Christmas present, that could have been something. If they're willing to buy an NFL jersey, that probably would have been a good Christmas present.
Very true.
It would have been. Yeah.
All right. Irregardless of all the things Rick could rant about, Sandoval being included, probably won't be here. Rantin, Rick's Rostrum Podium.
Wait, who did Sandoval pick?
So, thank you, Justin, because we have an order and decorum to the show, Jurg.
I apologize.
The picks were Jurg at 4 points takes Baltimore, 3 points for Chicago and an upset, 2 points for San Francisco, and 1 point for Denver. I don't know why, but okay. Justin, 4 points for Buffalo, 3 points for the Rams and an upset, 2 points for Cincinnati, 1 point for the Giants. I had 4 points for Philadelphia, 3 points for Washington, 2 points Minnesota and an upset, and 1 point for the Jets, Jets. Sandoval goes Chargers over Chiefs at 1 point, and it is a 1 point multiplier, so it's just 1 point for him. I just want to verify it's 1 point.
How far behind? How far behind are you?
7.
Okay,
7 points behind.
You got a chance. You got a chance.
I do. Yeah, I have a chance.
We'll see.
Jurg. A lot of things happened this week that I could rant about. Qatar banning alcohol, so now we all have to drink Bud Zero at the World Cup games, which the World Cup starts tomorrow, by the way. Monday night is the Wales-America game. I don't know who I'm rooting for there, but go Wales. That's fine. Todd Downing, the O-coordinator for the Titans, after winning against the Packers, gets the DUI. I mean, that's not great citizenship, I suppose. And then I don't know if you saw the trailer for 80 for Brady that came out this weekend. Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Sally Field, and Rita Moreno play 4 thirsty 80-year-old Patriots fans who get their way to the Super Bowl to go see Tom Brady play and possibly meet Tom Brady. Brady's in the movie, so is Gronk, so is Julian Edelman. Apparently, it's like this big thing. I don't know. I mean, it might be inspired by a true story. That's what it said, but, Hollywood could lie about that. Who knows? I think it's funny that the fact that it's Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, they made it into a movie, but he's not the star of the movie, which is just hilarious to me. But no. Number 3, I just literally found this out about an hour ago. I want to talk about Denny's. Now, we all know that Dunkin' sucks. We all know this for a fact. Denny's has a promotion right now where if you go to their website, you can buy a Denny's t-shirt. And the t-shirt basically says, like pancakes, eggs, bacon, whatever it is, every day. The shirt is $5.99. Okay. If you buy that shirt, you can then redeem that shirt for what's called the Everyday Value Slam, which means you will get free Denny's breakfast for a whole year. So that $5.99 shirt can cost up to $2,200 for somebody who buys that shirt. Now, there's only 150 available. I just bought us 3 of them, by the way, so you're welcome. But I also did that in spite. Who wants Denny's? Give me IHOP over Denny's any day of the week. I'm sorry. I can't. I'll go to a diner. New York diners are amazing. Better than Denny's. Who wants to go to Denny's in New York or anywhere else? It's just ridiculous. So the more profit margin value on that is, I don't know, negative 80% or something like that. You've lost so much business on that because you decided to sell a t-shirt on your website and then it redeems for free breakfast for a whole year. So $6 or $2,200. I don't know. I think it's a problem for me. Number 2, rather. I was going to go with this as number 1, but it's now number 2 for me. I'm flipping around. Ticketmaster. Now, I'm not going to the Taylor Swift concert like all normal 31-year-old men are not going to the Taylor Swift concert. But Ticketmaster, I've had a lot of problems with you for a long, long time. The resale value on your tickets was bonkers. I think you could buy tickets for $60,000 to go see Taylor Swift and tour. And then your answers for, why this is all a problem were non-existent. Why are you a scummy FTX wannabe, essentially, Ticketmaster? You're terrible at what you're doing. The secondary market is a lot better than you at this point. Your customer service sucks. Your ticket prices are gouged. You have no hope of doing anything. You are terrible at life, Ticketmaster. Anybody who works there, I'm sorry, but your company is terrible. Absolutely horrible. Your company is the Adam Rank of ticket sales. That's just how bad you are. And now, number 1, I want to go to whiny basketball players, specifically Zach LaVine. Oh, Zach LaVine. Now, Zach LaVine, a couple days ago, was benched in the Chicago Bulls loss. I forget who they were playing. But he said in a post-game scrum, he said, but down the stretch, you want to play me because I'm the guy you want to play. You shot 1 for 14, Zach. Billy Donovan, who was a good friend of mine, was correct in doing that, benching you because you're a terrible basketball player. You are #not my slam dunk champion, #Aaron Gordon was robbed. And just get the hell out of here with this nonsense of you trying to be a good basketball player, Zach LaVine. It is no good. You are the Adam Rank of the NBA. You are terrible at everything. Adam Rank is terrible at everything. Duncan sucks, and that's all I have to say about the matter. Happy Thanksgiving to all you ungrateful noobs out there.
I don't even know what to say, in part because so much is going on around me, so I kind of have to end the episode here, but I mean, I will say this about Zach LaVine. You would think after what happened to him because he had Jim Boylan as a coach at first in Chicago, you think he'd be a little bit more grateful. At least Billy Donovan is not Jim Boylan. Just saying.
No, he's not. None of these NBA players are grateful for anything.
Very fair.
Yeah. That's why I said ungrateful news, because everyone in the NBA is ungrateful.
Also, do you know where that Denny shirt is going? Do you have my address?
I mean, there's only one Jurgen Coney in the world, so
yeah, very fair. But like, what black market website did you get my address on?
Well, I'm sending it to you via Sandoval Courier, so
Fair enough. All right. Well,
if anybody knows, it's the deer.
Yeah, that's true. That deer will find me, and we'll have a grand old time. Unlike Justin. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on what was indeed a chaotic episode of the pod, to say the very least. We had fun games. We broke down a wonderful game. Midseason awards. Some people were a little controversial, and other people were not so. Well, actually, no. I think we were all controversial, at least one selection.
Yeah.
And our pick challenge. Let's see where it goes. I didn't even realize I was in first. I actually thought me and Justin were tied at 61 apiece, but I guess I'm in first place again. For how long? Probably not that long. Probably someone's going to take over, but all that matters now. And we will share the terms that we have agreed to at the end of the season. But for now, no, there are high stakes involved in terms of Rick beating the deer in predictions. What will happen there? How will the rest of the season play out? Who are we going to dunk on in the following weeks? And who is Rick going to point out as being the equivalent to Duncan or Adam Rank? You got to wait for the next episode to figure that out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, where what this show is all about, it's all about the fun, it's all about the football, and we are here to spread just a little bit or a lot of it of chaos. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all next week.